In this video, we'll show you what happened in the books of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, as well as the Chamber of Secrets, and what the movies left out. For example, did you know there was actually 7 trials in the original book, not only 5? They left out Quirrell's trial of getting past a troll, and Snape's riddle of poison potions, which would have been great to see. Also, in the Chamber of Secrets book, when Harry goes to Knockturn Alley by accident, we get a hint of the Malfoys' dark secret, as well as witness a physical fight between Lucius and Arthur Weasley in the bookstore. We will use vertical footage on the right to remind you of what happened in the movies, as well as character and scene icons that will appear when referenced from the books. Anyway, let's begin. Chapter 1: The Boy Who Lived. Vernon and Petunia Dursley reside at number 4 Privet Drive in Little Whinging, Surrey. They take great pride in their normalcy and firmly reject anything that is peculiar or enigmatic. Vernon holds the position of director at Grunnings, a company specializing in drill manufacturing, while Petunia manages their household affairs and cares for their 1-year-old son, Dudley. Every single car found on Privet Drive is a Vauxhall, regardless of the era. On the morning of Tuesday, November 1st, 1981, the Dursleys commence their day with a round of gossip about their neighbours. While Petunia struggles to settle the unruly Dudley into his high chair, set director Stephanie McMillan intentionally searched for the most unattractive furniture to enhance the unpleasantness of the Dursleys' house. Unbeknownst to them, a majestic tawny owl gracefully glides past their window. However, Vernon's attention is momentarily caught by a tabby cat engrossed in reading a map and a street sign outside their residence. Despite his best efforts, he dismisses the peculiar sight from his mind. As they make their way into town, Vernon's curiosity is piqued when he observes numerous individuals donning cloaks engaged in animated conversations. Stealthily, he eavesdrops on their discussions, overhearing mentions of the Potters and their son Harry. This revelation fills Vernon with dread, as the Potters are his in-laws, and he and Petunia are adamant about keeping their connection to them a secret. When he finishes his work for the day, he encounters a diminutive man in a cloak. Instead of apologizing, the man embraces him and shares that even non-magical individuals like him should rejoice as you-know-who has been vanquished. Upon arriving home, Vernon discovers the cat still lingering, casting a disapproving glance when he attempts to shoo it away. The media is abuzz with reports of mysterious owl sightings and dazzling fireworks, prompting Vernon to anxiously inquire if Petunia has received any news from her sister lately. Although visibly upset, Petunia confirms that she has not been in contact with her sister and reveals that their nephew goes by the name of Harry. Vernon's spirits plummet. Sleep eludes him that night, but eventually he drifts off. None of these events take place in the film adaptation. After the Dursleys drift off into slumber, Albus Dumbledore materializes in the midst of Privet Drive and employs his Deluminator to extract the illumination from the street lamps. The surname Dumbledore means bumblebee in Old English. Dumbledore cordially addresses the feline creature, who has patiently awaited outside throughout the day, as Professor McGonagall, causing her to transform into a witch. At the beginning of the novel, Minerva McGonagall, in her animagus form, had been closely observing Vernon Dursley before her encounter with Dumbledore and Hagrid. Although this particular scene was not included in the film adaptation, it was alluded to when McGonagall expressed her concerns about leaving Harry under the care of the Dursleys, mentioning that she had been watching them all day. The two engage in a conversation regarding the tragic demise of James and Lily Potter at the hands of Lord Voldemort at their residence in Godric's Hollow. Astonishingly, their infant son Harry Potter managed to survive the assault, while Voldemort himself appears to have perished. Richard Harris reluctantly accepted the role of Albus Dumbledore when his 11-year-old granddaughter made a heartfelt ultimatum to sever all communication with him. Initially, Patrick McGoohan was approached for the role, but he declined due to health concerns. Unfortunately, Harris faced his own health challenges and tragically succumbed to Hodgkin's lymphoma just before the premiere of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets in 2002. Rubeus Hagrid arrives on a flying motorbike, carrying Harry with him. Former England rugby international player Martin Bayfield served as Robbie Coltrane's body double for Hagrid, standing at an impressive height of 6'10". Hagrid entrusts the young child to Dumbledore, who leaves the slumbering baby and a letter for the Dursleys on the doorstep of number 4. The three wizards are deeply saddened by the prospect of leaving the orphaned infant with his relatives. Yet they allow themselves only a brief moment to grieve before compelling themselves to depart. Hagrid pledges to return the motorbike to its rightful owner, the youthful Sirius Black. McGonagall reverts to her feline form and stealthily disappears around the corner at the opposite end of the street, while Dumbledore reinstates the luminosity to the street lamps. He bids Harry farewell before vanishing without a trace. While nestled in his cocoon of blankets, Harry stirs and unknowingly grasps the letter in his small hand as he continues to slumber. Moreover, he remains oblivious to the fact that at this very moment, clandestine gatherings are taking place all across the nation, where individuals raise their glasses in a toast to Harry Potter, the boy who lived. Chapter 2: The Vanishing Glass. It has been a decade since the Dursleys awoke to discover Harry Potter lying on their doorstep, and both Privet Drive and the Dursleys' residence have remained unchanged since that eventful day. The sole noticeable alteration is the extensive collection of photographs showcasing Dudley Dursley's various stages of life adorning the walls. There is no indication that Harry Potter resides there, as he is compelled to live in the cramped cupboard under the stairs, a space teeming with numerous spiders. One morning, Petunia approaches Harry's door and rouses him with her piercing voice. Harry, still pondering over the recurring dream he has been having, which involves a flying motorbike, believes that he has experienced this dream before. Aunt Petunia instructs him to prepare some bacon, as she desires everything to be flawless for Dudley's 11th birthday celebration. Harry dons a set of Dudley's old garments and proceeds to the kitchen, where the table is adorned with an array of presents for Dudley. Casting Harry Potter proved to be an immense challenge as they conducted auditions for 5,000 boys, yet none of them seemed to fit the role. Chris Columbus, the producer and director, came across Daniel Radcliffe's performance in David Copperfield, 1999, and was thoroughly impressed. He shared his discovery with the casting director, expressing his belief that Radcliffe was the perfect choice. However, the casting director expressed doubts, explaining that they wouldn't be able to secure him due to his parents' desire for him to prioritize his education over acting. Ironically, the producer and screenwriter of the film coincidentally encountered Radcliffe and his father at a theatre. They engaged in conversation and gradually managed to convince Radcliffe to take on the role. Harry possesses jet black hair and green eyes. His glasses are held together by tape due to Dudley's repeated smashing. What truly sets Harry apart is the lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. He often ponders its origin, with the Dursleys claiming it resulted from the car crash that claimed his parents' lives. Harry's knowledge of the incident is limited, as the Dursleys strictly forbid him from asking questions. The positioning of the scar on Harry's forehead in this film is not centered. J.K. Rowling specifically requested this alteration, as many individuals have mistakenly assumed that the scar should be in the middle of his forehead based on the cover artwork of her books. Nevertheless, the books themselves never explicitly mentioned the exact location of the scar on his forehead. Daniel Radcliffe only wore the green contact lenses briefly to resemble his character from the book. He wore them solely in the initial scene that was filmed, but had to remove them due to discomfort. Dudley enters the kitchen and begins counting his gifts, only to discover 36, one less than the previous year, which infuriates him. Aunt Petunia promises to purchase him 2 additional presents while they are out. Vernon informs Petunia that their neighbour, Arabella Figg, has broken her leg and cannot look after Harry during their trip to the zoo. With no one else available to care for him, Harry is reluctantly brought along. Dudley has the opportunity to bring a friend to the zoo and decides on Piers Pocus. Piers arrives at the house accompanied by his mother. 30 minutes later, Harry finds himself in the car with Dudley, Piers, Vernon, and Petunia. Piers Pocus is not included in the film adaptation. Additionally, Vernon's sister, Marge, and Petunia's friend, Yvonne, who is currently vacationing in Mallorca, are also omitted. While on the road, a motorbike overtakes them, prompting Vernon to express his annoyance. Harry mentions having dreamt about a flying motorbike, to which Vernon curtly dismisses the idea. Harry reflects on the peculiar occurrences in his life, such as jumping onto the school chimney and waking up the next day with all his hair grown back after a haircut. At the zoo, Dudley and Piers are unimpressed by the animals. Harry is left observing a boa constrictor as it sleeps, and when Dudley tries to provoke it, the snake wakes up but remains still. It only starts moving after Dudley and Piers leave. Shortly after, Harry converses with the snake and is surprised to find that it understands him. When Dudley and Vernon are called back to the snake's enclosure, Dudley shoves Harry aside, causing him to fall hard on the concrete floor. As Dudley presses his face against the glass, Harry becomes enraged, and somehow the glass disappears, allowing the snake to escape and frighten Dudley and Piers. Harry even thinks he hears the snake responding to him. Piers informs on Harry for talking to the snake, leading Uncle Vernon to punish him by sending him to his cupboard without meals for a week as a harsh consequence. In the book, the glass of the snake tank remains missing. However, in the film adaptation, it reappears, ensnaring Dudley within the confines of the tank. The snake in the book refers to Harry as amigo as a way of expressing gratitude for being freed, which could be seen as a nod to its South American roots. On the other hand, in the movie adaptation, the snake just says thanks. In the movie, Vernon throws Harry into a cupboard and locks it, while reminding him through a small vent that magic does not exist. Chapter 3: The Letters from No One. After being confined to his cupboard for an extended period of time due to the escape of the boa constrictor from the zoo, Harry is finally granted freedom at the start of the summer holidays. Despite being away from school, Harry still finds himself unable to evade Dudley and his gang, who frequently visit the house. In order to avoid them, Harry often roams around Privet Drive. Fortunately, Dudley and Piers will be attending Smelting's Academy, while Harry will be enrolled at Stonewall High, which brings him some relief. One summer day, Harry is instructed to retrieve the mail for Uncle Vernon. As he collects the mail, he discovers 3 letters: a postcard from Uncle Vernon's sister, who is vacationing on the Isle of Wight, a bill-like letter, and a letter addressed to Harry. Harry chooses to take the letter addressed to him, carefully examining the yellow parchment it is composed of before reading the address. Harry is in disbelief. Throughout his entire life, he has never received a single letter. On the reverse side of the envelope, there is a wax seal featuring a lion, a snake, a badger, and an eagle encircling the letter H. Returning to the kitchen, Harry hands over the remaining 2 letters to Uncle Vernon before taking a seat and carefully opening his own letter. It doesn't take long for Dudley to notice that Harry has received a letter, prompting Uncle Vernon to snatch it away and read it alongside Aunt Petunia. Instructing Harry and Dudley to leave the kitchen, they both retreat to the hallway. A dispute arises between the 2 boys as they argue over who gets to peek through the keyhole. Ultimately, Dudley emerges victorious, leaving Harry to resort to peering through the narrow gap between the floor and the door. Meanwhile, Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia engage in a conversation about the seal on the back of the letter. Uncle Vernon suggests that they simply disregard it. Aunt Petunia's name is quite appropriate given that she and her spouse always resented having to look after their orphan nephew Harry. In the language of flowers, known as floriography, petunias symbolize anger and bitterness. Afterwards, when Harry finds himself in his cramped cupboard, Uncle Vernon enters and informs him that he has destroyed the letter. Furthermore, he reveals that Harry will be relocated to Dudley's second bedroom. Harry, feeling a bit taken aback, proceeds to transfer all of his belongings to the new room while silently longing for his lost letter. The following morning during breakfast, Uncle Vernon instructs Dudley to retrieve the mail. With his smelting stick causing a ruckus throughout the hallway, Dudley exclaims that there is yet another letter for Harry, this time addressed to the smallest bedroom, instead of the cupboard under the stairs. Both Harry and Uncle Vernon hastily rush to the hallway, each vying to claim the letter. After a brief scuffle, Uncle Vernon emerges victorious, tightly clutching the letter in his hand. The part where Harry receives Dudley's second bedroom is left out. In the second movie, he does end up getting the room, suggesting that the Dursleys provided Harry with the space following his first year. Harry is determined to discover the contents of the letter he received. He quietly descends the stairs early the next morning and heads towards the door. His plan is to wait there until the post arrives, giving him the opportunity to finally read the letter. However, upon reaching the door, he encounters Uncle Vernon, who had the same idea. Each day, more letters addressed to Harry start appearing, increasing in number. The situation escalates to the point where Uncle Vernon decides to seal the letterbox shut. Despite his efforts, the letters continue to find their way into the house through unconventional means, under the door, through the window, and even inside eggs cracked by Aunt Petunia. The situation reaches a climax when a barrage of letters is sent flying out of the fireplace, overwhelming the family. Despite the persistent attempts of the sender, Harry is unable to get hold of a letter long enough to read it. An enraged Uncle Vernon decides that they must leave the house, and within 10 minutes, they are driving away. The film adaptation of Harry Potter excludes the scene where Harry and the Dursleys seek refuge in a random hotel to escape the flood of letters. Instead, they directly head to the hut. Also, Dudley's exclamation of, "Daddy's gone mad, hasn't he?" is shifted to right after Uncle Vernon announces their plan to move far away, ensuring the owls won't locate them. In the book, Dudley utters this line only when Vernon momentarily stops driving on a bridge to check if any owls are tailing them. They journey for miles until they eventually come to a desolate hotel on the outskirts of the city. Nevertheless, Vernon's efforts to elude the sender prove futile, as more letters arrive for Harry at the hotel the following morning. Once again, they return to the car and eventually halt at a dock where they board a boat bound for a secluded island with a small cottage. The part where Harry and the Dursleys use the rowboat of the toothless old man to reach the hut has been left out. Harry recollects that the upcoming day marks his 11th birthday. Unable to sleep due to the raging storm outside, he anxiously counts down the hours until his birthday. As Dudley's watch ticks over to the next day, a resounding knock echoes at the door. Something or someone is eager to gain entry. The books reveal that Harry Potter's birthday is on the 31st of July, 1980, which interestingly aligns with J.K. Rowling's birth date of the 31st of July, 1965. Coincidentally, Richard Griffiths, who played Uncle Vernon, was also born on the 31st of July, but in 1947. Warner Brothers initially contemplated creating the complete Harry Potter film series as a collection of computer-animated films or merging multiple novels into a single film. The primary concern of the studio was the potential aging of the young actors and actresses. If production extended too long or faced delays between sequels, there was a risk of having to recast the lead roles. However, J.K. Rowling opposed both the ideas of combining books and creating an animated movie. Consequently, the studio opted to film all 8 movies consecutively to ensure continuity with the same cast throughout. Chapter 4: The Keeper of the Keys. There is a sudden loud bang on the door, causing Dudley to wake up, mistaking it for a cannon. Uncle Vernon appears with a rifle, while Aunt Petunia hides behind him in fear. The door is blown off its hinges and crashes to the ground. A giant comes in and effortlessly fixes the door back into place. He requests for coffee and settles on the couch next to Dudley, who promptly scurries behind Aunt Petunia. In the film, Hagrid doesn't request coffee. The giant then shifts his gaze to Harry, greeting him warmly and mentioning that he hasn't seen him since he was a baby. He notes that Harry resembles his father but has his mother's eyes. Despite Uncle Vernon's protests, the giant nonchalantly disarms him, twists the gun into a knot, and tosses it aside. In the film, the gun discharges shortly after, a scene that does not occur in the book. Also, Hagrid recognizes Harry right away when they first met on the island, while in the film, Hagrid initially mistakes Dudley for Harry until Dudley corrects him. The giant surprises Harry with a birthday cake. In the book, Harry does not say thank you to Hagrid when receiving a birthday cake, but in the film, he does. Curious, Harry wants to know about the giant's identity, to which he reveals himself as Rubeus Hagrid, the Keeper of Keys and Grounds at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Hagrid proceeds to light a fire and cook some sausages. He is taken aback to learn that Harry is completely unaware of the magical world of Hogwarts. Expressing his frustration towards the Dursleys for keeping Harry in the dark about his heritage, Hagrid informs Harry that his parents were renowned figures and that he is a wizard, despite Uncle Vernon's objections. Hagrid fulfills Harry's longing by presenting him with the long-awaited acceptance letter to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, with the term starting on September 1st. Hagrid retrieves paper and a quill to compose a letter addressed to Albus Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts, detailing the delivery of the letter to Harry. Despite Uncle Vernon's objections, Hagrid is certain that Harry will attend Hogwarts. Uncle Vernon admits to knowing about Harry's magical abilities, while Aunt Petunia discloses that Harry's mother, her sister, was a witch. Petunia claims that another wizard was responsible for their deaths, but Harry insists that she previously mentioned a car accident. Both Harry and Hagrid are appalled by the Dursleys' deceit. Hagrid explains to Harry that Lord Voldemort, a dark wizard, murdered his parents and attempted to kill him as well, resulting in the lightning bolt scar on his forehead. Hagrid recounts rescuing Harry from the wreckage of his parents' home and delivering him to the Dursleys at 4 Privet Drive. Despite Uncle Vernon's dismissive attitude, Hagrid intervenes with an umbrella when he attempts to belittle Harry's heritage. When Harry asks about Voldemort's whereabouts, Hagrid informs him that the Dark Wizard disappeared and has not been sighted since. However, in the film adaptation, Harry asks about this matter while at the Leaky Cauldron, and it is at this location that Hagrid discloses the truth about his parents. Harry questions his wizarding abilities until Hagrid questions whether he has ever experienced unexplainable occurrences when feeling angry or frightened. Upon Uncle Vernon's foolish decision to ridicule Dumbledore, Hagrid swiftly waves his umbrella towards Dudley, resulting in the growth of a curly pig's tail. Hagrid requests that Harry keeps this incident a secret at Hogwarts, as Hagrid is prohibited from practicing magic due to his expulsion. Hagrid removes his coat, and Harry finds solace sleeping beneath it throughout the remainder of the night, anticipating the events of the upcoming day. In the book, Vernon Dursley warns Dudley not to accept anything from Hagrid or eat the sausages he makes for Harry. However, in the film, Vernon doesn't mention this to Dudley, who later eats some of Harry's birthday cake, leading Hagrid to stop him by giving him a pig's tail. Chapter 5: Diagon Alley. When Harry awakens the next day, he attempts to convince himself that the events of the previous night were merely a figment of his imagination, and that Hagrid escorting him to a magical school known as Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry was all a dream. However, as he opens his eyes, he finds Hagrid asleep on the sofa, confirming that it was all real. A tapping sound at the window draws his attention, and he allows an owl to enter. The owl drops a newspaper onto Hagrid's lap and starts tugging at his coat. Hagrid instructs Harry to pay the owl, prompting Harry to comply before the owl departs. Hagrid informs him that they need to purchase his supplies, causing Harry to worry about his lack of funds. Hagrid reassures him that his parents did not leave him penniless and reveals that their first destination is Gringotts, the bank for wizards managed by goblins. He emphasizes the folly of attempting to rob the bank and mentions that Dumbledore requires something from there, necessitating their visit. They exit the hut and embark on their boat. Hagrid utilizes a touch of magic to expedite their progress. Hagrid mentions the presence of enchantments safeguarding the vaults in Gringotts. Gringotts is situated beneath London. One would perish from hunger if attempting to escape. Hagrid commences reading the Daily Prophet and quietly expresses his dissatisfaction with the Ministry of Magic's habitual mishaps. Harry ponders the role of the Ministry of Magic, prompting Hagrid to explain that they oversee all magical affairs. He reveals that they initially desired Dumbledore as minister, but Cornelius Fudge secured the position. While passing through London, Hagrid's imposing stature and his habit of pointing out Muggle inventions often attract attention from onlookers. Harry inquires about the presence of dragons guarding Gringotts, to which Hagrid confirms and expresses his own desire for a dragon. Harry retrieves his list and recites the items he needs, including robes, a pointed hat, dragonhide gloves, and a winter coat. The list also includes his required books and stationery supplies. Hagrid leads them into a pub named the Leaky Cauldron, which Harry had not previously noticed. The establishment appears dim and worn, and Hagrid is warmly greeted by everyone upon entering. This particular scene marks the first instance where Voldemort is mentioned in the film, whereas in the book, Dumbledore and McGonagall make references to him at the beginning, albeit indirectly through rumors. Furthermore, in the film, Hagrid neglects to mention to Harry that he was expelled from Hogwarts but permitted to stay on as the gamekeeper, whereas this information is conveyed in the book. This revelation would only be unveiled in the subsequent film. As people notice Harry, many extend their hand in greeting, including Doris Crockford and Daedalus Diggle. A turban-wearing man approaches them, and Hagrid introduces Harry to Quirinus Quirrell, the defense against the dark arts professor at Hogwarts. After a brief conversation, Hagrid guides them through a back door into a small enclosed area with several barrels. Hagrid retrieves his umbrella and taps the bricks in a specific order. As he finishes, a hole materializes in the brick wall, gradually expanding until the entire wall vanishes, revealing a bustling street filled with individuals donning robes and numerous shops lining the way. Hagrid informs Harry that this street is called Diagon Alley. While strolling along the street, Harry carefully observes his surroundings, absorbing every detail. At the far end of Diagon Alley stands the imposing snowy white structure of Gringotts Bank. A cautionary message greets them upon entry, warning of the consequences of attempting to steal. Harry and Hagrid approach a goblin and explain their need to access Harry's vault. The goblin requests Harry's key, which Hagrid eventually finds after sifting through a multitude of keys. Although the unnamed head goblin at Gringotts has less than a minute of screen time and only 2 lines of dialogue, he is prominently featured on the American theatrical poster, positioned right below Ron and Harry's faces. Another goblin named Griphook is summoned to escort them to the vault. Hagrid mentions the necessity of visiting Vault 713 to retrieve the mysterious item. Griphook leads them to Harry's vault, revealing a substantial amount of money in the form of bronze knuts, silver sickles, and gold galleons. After withdrawing some funds for Harry's needs, they depart from Gringotts. Hagrid struggles to maintain his composure during the cart ride to the vaults, feeling queasy. Upon reaching Vault 713, Hagrid retrieves a nondescript package, keeping its contents a secret from Harry. Hagrid decides to take a break and heads to the Leaky Cauldron for a refreshing drink. Meanwhile, Harry goes to Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions to get his uniform. Malkin's character is excluded from the film despite her name being displayed on a sign. In the book, Madame Malkin positions him on a stool next to a boy with a pale face, who is also being measured for his robes. The boy initiates a conversation about Quidditch and shares his plan to sneak in his broomstick. He also mentions the names of 2 houses, Slytherin and Hufflepuff. Upon discovering that Harry is accompanied by Hagrid, the boy wants to know what happened to Harry's parents. However, he shows no sympathy towards their deaths and instead expresses relief that they were wizards, implying that non-wizards should not be allowed. After leaving the shop, Harry questions Hagrid about the boy's remarks. Hagrid proceeds to explain that Hogwarts has 4 houses, Quidditch is a sport played on broomsticks, and one's blood status is irrelevant. They continue their shopping until Harry only needs to acquire his wand and, as Hagrid insists, a birthday present. In the film, Harry's first encounter with Draco Malfoy takes place at Hogwarts before the sorting ceremony, not in Diagon Alley. In the book, Harry learned about Quidditch from Draco in Diagon Alley before Hagrid explained it to him, whereas in the film, this scene was shifted to Hogwarts during Harry's first flying lesson, after Madame Hooch mentioned it while attending to Neville Longbottom's injury. Tom Felton had not familiarized himself with any of the Harry Potter books prior to his audition. During the audition, Chris Columbus, the director, inquired about the favorite part in the book from each candidate vying for the role of Malfoy. When it was Felton's turn, he mentioned that his preferred section was the one set at Gringotts, coincidentally the same choice as the previous contender. Columbus astutely recognized this and found it quite amusing. Likewise, Tom Felton's hair, originally brown, was lightened to a blonde shade for his portrayal of Draco Malfoy. In Ollivander's The Wand Shop, Mr. Ollivander unsettles Harry with his eerie demeanor while discussing the wands bought by Hagrid, Harry's parents, and Voldemort. Ollivander touches Harry's scar and expresses regret for selling the wand that caused it. He hands Harry a wand and instructs him to give it a wave. Harry complies, but the wand is not a good fit, so Ollivander takes it back. Despite trying numerous wands, none seem to work well for him. Finally, he selects a wand, Holly, 11 inches, Phoenix Feather Core, nice and supple, and feels a warmth in his fingers. Ollivander remarks on the curiosity that Harry should be destined for that wand, considering its connection to the one that gave him his scar. In the book, Harry tested multiple wands before Mr. Ollivander suggested the 11-inch Holy Wand with a phoenix feather core, whereas in the film, he only tried 2 wands before the right one was chosen. Additionally, the wands did not react when Harry waved them, but in the film, they caused chaos by blowing papers and boxes off the shelves and breaking a vase. In the book, Hagrid accompanies Harry when he purchases his wand, while in the film, Hagrid is absent as he is off buying Hedwig. In the book, Hagrid then takes Harry to grab a bite in the Muggle world, but Harry worries about fitting in at Hogwarts with the high expectations placed on him. For his birthday, Hagrid purchases Harry a snowy owl named Hedwig. Hagrid provides Harry with a train ticket detailing the date, time, and location to catch the Hogwarts Express, and assures Harry that if he ever needs anything, he can write a letter, and Hedwig will know where to find him. Harry boards a train back to the Dursleys. In the book, Harry selects the name Hedwig from a History of Magic book. However, the film does not specify where the name originates from, and Hedwig's name is not even mentioned in the film. Chapter 6. The Journey from Platform 9 and 3/4. Harry's final month with the Dursleys elicits mixed emotions of relief and sadness. His presence is ignored by his aunt and uncle, while Dudley's fear of him keeps them apart. Harry spends his time in solitude in his cramped room, accompanied only by Hedwig and his new books. The day before his departure, Harry requests Uncle Vernon to drive him to King's Cross Station. Although Uncle Vernon complies, he mocks Harry for mentioning Platform 9 and 3/4, as indicated on the ticket from Hagrid. The following day, Harry is left behind by the Dursleys at the station. In the movie, Harry heads to the train station with Hagrid right after purchasing his school supplies. Standing amidst Platforms 9 and 10, he ponders on how to locate Platform 9 and 3/4. Initially perplexed, he eventually overhears Molly Weasley mentioning the term Muggles and decides to seek her assistance. Molly instructs him to run through the barrier between Platforms 9 and 10, which he promptly does. To his amazement, he discovers the Hogwarts train awaiting him on the other side of the station. Assisting him in lifting his trunk onto the train are Mrs. Weasley's twin sons, Fred and George Weasley, who then recognize him as Harry Potter. Ron, their younger brother and a first-year student, requests to join Harry in his compartment. In the movie, the staff member at King's Cross Station who questions Harry is actually employed by Great Northeastern Railway. However, he serves as a train manager, not a platform attendant. J.K. Rowling has acknowledged that she made an error in the layout of the station when she placed the entrance to the Hogwarts Express on Platform 9 and 3/4. In reality, Platforms 9 and 10 are part of the suburban section of the station, not the intercity area as she had envisioned. Despite this discrepancy, there is a special Platform 9 and 3/4 at King's Cross, situated in the passage between the actual Platforms 9 and 10, serving as a delightful surprise for Harry Potter enthusiasts. Bonnie Wright, who portrayed Ginny Weasley, was not originally intended to utter the phrase "good luck" to Harry at King's Cross. Her character was not meant to have any dialogue in that scene, yet the editors decided to retain those lines nonetheless. Harry and Ron form a connection over their concerns regarding Hogwarts, with Ron's apprehension stemming from his accomplished older siblings and his melancholic rat Scabbers. In a gesture of camaraderie, Harry purchases an abundance of sweets for them to enjoy together. Ron familiarizes Harry with various aspects of the magical world, such as Quidditch, Bertie Bott's every flavor beans, and famous witches and wizards cards. Among the cards, Harry comes across one featuring Albus Dumbledore. Harry then encounters Hermione Granger, an ambitious girl, Neville Longbottom, who is searching for his missing toad Trevor, and Draco Malfoy, an unpleasant individual from Madame Malkin's, along with his companions Crabbe and Goyle. Harry is deeply hurt by Draco's prejudice and impoliteness, particularly when it is aimed at Ron. Consequently, he declines Draco's offer of friendship and guidance. The situation escalates to the point where the 5 boys are on the verge of engaging in a physical altercation. However, Scabbers intervenes by biting Goyle, causing him and his companions to retreat. This scene is excluded from the film adaptation. In the film, Hermione appears alone, inquiring if anyone has seen a toad and mentioning that a boy named Neville has lost one. Emma Watson's theatre teacher at Oxford recommended her to the casting agents, resulting in her having to undergo more than 5 interviews before finally securing the role. Despite taking her audition seriously, Watson never harbored any expectations of actually landing the part. However, her self-confidence left a lasting impression on the producers, ultimately surpassing the numerous other girls who had also applied. Emma Watson expressed her dislike for her hairstyle in this particular film. Subsequently, her hair was styled differently in subsequent movies, with a reduction in its bushiness and a shift towards a wavier appearance. Emma Watson revealed to 17 magazine in 2011 that her first crush was on her Harry Potter co-star, Tom Felton, who portrayed Draco Malfoy when she began filming the movies at the age of 9. Eventually, the Hogwarts Express reaches Hogsmeade Station, and Hagrid takes charge of leading the first-year students across the lake in boats. It is during this journey that they catch their initial glimpse of the magnificent Hogwarts. In the year it was released, this film surpassed The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring 2001, in terms of both production cost and box office revenue. Chapter 7: The Sorting Hat. Upon arrival at the castle door, Professor Minerva McGonagall welcomes the new students and informs them that they will soon be sorted into their respective houses. Hogwarts students are divided into Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, or Slytherin, each with its own Quidditch team. Throughout the year, these houses compete to earn the most points through Quidditch games, academic achievements, and student behavior. The House Cup is awarded to the house with the highest points at the end of the year. Author J.K. Rowling wrote down the names of the 4 Hogwarts houses during a flight. She recorded them on an empty air sickness bag to ensure she wouldn't forget them. The meaning of the Hogwarts motto, Draco Dormiens, Nunquam Titilandus, is to never tickle a sleeping dragon. Meanwhile, the first years patiently wait in an antechamber as McGonagall determines the appropriate time. Harry learns from Hagrid in Diagon Alley that only Slytherins go bad in the book, but in the film, he learns it from Ron during the sorting ceremony. In the midst of this, the Hogwarts ghosts accidentally enter the room while discussing whether to give Peeves another chance. The students are guided to the Great Hall, where the entire school and a worn-out old hat on a stool await them. Based on the call sheets, the sequences with the actors portraying the ghost were recorded in front of black velvet screens in Leavesden Studios. The Great Hall's floating candles were crafted by using candle-shaped holders filled with oil and lit wicks. These holders were suspended from wires that were capable of moving up and down on a specialized rig, giving the illusion of floating. However, an unfortunate incident occurred when one of the wires snapped due to the intense heat of the flame, resulting in a candle falling to the floor. But no injuries were sustained. It was then decided that for the next movies, the candles would be recreated using CGI. This decision was made due to the realization that employing real candles posed a safety risk. As the students put on the sorting hat, it declares the house they belong to. In the book, the sorting hat sings a song before the sorting process begins, a detail that is missing in the film. The sorting is done alphabetically in the book, while it is out of order in the film. Additionally, only a few students are shown being sorted in the film, unlike in the book where all students are sorted after Harry. When students are called to be sorted, they place the hat on themselves in the book, but in the film, Professor McGonagall does it for them. Harry starts feeling anxious. He has discovered that he doesn't want to be in Slytherin House as the students there are unpleasant, and Voldemort was once a member of Slytherin. Hermione is sorted into Gryffindor, much to Ron's dissatisfaction. Finally, it's Harry's turn to wear the hat. He quietly mutters to himself, "Not Slytherin, not Slytherin." The hat becomes intrigued by this. After a brief internal conversation with the hat, during which it tries to persuade Harry to consider Slytherin, the hat places him in Gryffindor. Harry is delighted to see that Ron also joins Gryffindor. Draco Malfoy is sorted into Slytherin. In the movie version of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the sorting hat is portrayed as speaking aloud for all the students to hear, while in the original book, the sorting hat communicates privately with only the wearer. At the start of the year, all gather for a lavish feast. Harry is astounded by the array of delectable dishes presented. All the food displayed during the feast in the Great Hall is authentic. Director Chris Columbus aimed to create a grand welcome feast that closely resembled the description in the book, complete with roast beef, ham, turkey, and various accompaniments. However, due to the prolonged exposure to hot stage lighting during filming, the food started to emit an unpleasant smell, even though the meat was replaced every 2 days and the vegetables twice a day. To avoid this issue in the subsequent films, real food samples were frozen to create molds from which resin copies were cast. After the sorting, Dumbledore delivers a few comical words in the book before supper begins, a scene that is omitted in the film where he gives the start of term notices instead. Sir Nicholas de Mimsy-Porpington, the Gryffindor house ghost, commonly referred to as Nearly Headless Nick due to a failed beheading, greets the new students and expresses his wish for their victory in the house championship. John Cleese portrayed the character Nearly Headless Nick in this film. Interestingly, in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, he also played the Black Knight, a character who had all body parts severed except for his head. During dessert, the conversation shifts to the students' backgrounds. Neville Longbottom shares how his family believed he was a squib until he survived a fall from a window. Seamus Finnegan recounts the surprise of his muggle father upon discovering his wife's magical abilities. Harry observes the teachers conversing amongst themselves and notices one of them engaged in discussion with Quirrell, casting a menacing gaze in his direction, causing a sudden pain in his scar. Harry asks Percy, the prefect, about the individual, learning that he is Professor Severus Snape, the potions instructor. Alan Rickman was personally selected by J.K. Rowling to portray Snape, and was given specific guidance from her regarding the character. Rowling also shared important information about Snape's background, which was not disclosed until the last book. J.K. Rowling was adamant about having a British principal cast with the exception of Irish actors, leading to a strictly British and Irish cast policy for the franchise. Notable examples include Richard Harris and Fiona Shaw, both of whom are Irish. Zoe Wanamaker, despite being known as a British actress, was actually born in the United States, but was raised in Britain and became a British citizen in 2000. Following the dessert, Dumbledore rises to deliver his welcome address. He proceeds to issue a few cautions regarding the Forbidden Forest and the third-floor corridor on the right side of the school, urging everyone to retire to their respective common rooms. While on their way, the Gryffindors encounter Peeves, a mischievous poltergeist, and upon reaching their destination, they are greeted by the Fat Lady, who grants them access to Gryffindor Tower after Percy provides her with the password. Percy Weasley wears glasses in the book, but he is portrayed without them in the films. Peeves is also absent in the Philosopher's Stone film. Despite Rick Mayall's scenes being edited out of the movie, he was compensated in full. He expressed that it was the most thrilling film he had ever worked on. It is said that Mayall's ability to make the extras laugh when they weren't supposed to may have played a role in this decision. While the exact reason for his removal remains uncertain, Mayall himself later expressed dissatisfaction with the film, suggesting that perhaps it was for the best in the end. Harry experiences difficulty in falling asleep due to a troubling dream. In this dream, he finds himself wearing Professor Quirrell's turban, which insists that he should transfer to Slytherin. Harry adamantly refuses, but the weight of the headwear increases. Malfoy and Snape materialize, mocking him, and the dream concludes with a sudden burst of green light, causing Harry to awaken at midnight. However, he quickly falls back asleep, completely forgetting about the dream. Chapter 8: The Potions Master. Harry is faced with a multitude of unfamiliar and peculiar experiences at Hogwarts. His presence seems to be the topic of conversation among everyone, and there always seems to be an adult nearby whenever he happens to make a mistake. Navigating his way to classes proves to be a challenge due to the ever-changing staircases and perplexing doorways, numbering a staggering 142. The inhabitants of the Hogwarts portraits offer no assistance, as they selectively ignore certain students and engage in their own interactions. Even the ghosts, who glide through doors that Harry is attempting to open, only serve to startle him rather than provide guidance. The only reliable source of direction for new Gryffindors is Nearly Headless Nick, while encounters with Peeves, the mischievous poltergeist, result in 2 locked doors and a treacherous staircase whenever Harry is running late for class. To achieve an authentic appearance for Hogwarts Castle, extensive filming took place at various locations in England. These included Christchurch, Oxford, Durham Cathedral, Gloucester Cathedral and Alnwick Castle. Only a few sets were constructed specifically for Hogwarts, namely the Great Hall, the Grand Staircase and the Gryffindor Common Room. As the movies progressed, additional sets were built to depict various classrooms and other areas within Hogwarts. A significant portion of the stonework at Hogwarts, with the exception of the areas filmed on location, consists of plaster that has been painted and weathered to give the illusion of being centuries old. Several Christian groups have raised objections to the Harry Potter series. However, numerous historic churches in the UK, such as Durham Cathedral, Gloucester Cathedral, Lacock Abbey, Christchurch College, Oxford, and in the later movies, St. Paul's Cathedral, were utilised as filming locations for the franchise. These locations served as inspiration for much of the layout and architectural details of Hogwarts. Both Harry and Ron manage to earn Argus Filch's disapproval on their very first morning when they are caught attempting to breach the forbidden third-floor corridor. Filch threatens to confine them to the dungeons, but fortunately they are saved by the timely intervention of Quirrell, who happens to be passing by. Prior to the start of filming, David Bradley and his feline companion decided to lease a remote Irish cottage for a month to gain insight into caretaker Filch's solitary existence. Harry finds all of his classes fascinating, except for history of magic taught by Professor Binns. He quickly realizes that magic is much more than just waving a wand and saying a few words. Professor Binns is a character excluded from the film. The book portrays him as the sole teacher who exists as a ghost, seemingly oblivious to the fact that he passed away peacefully in his sleep. In his first Transfiguration class, Professor McGonagall impresses the entire class by transforming her desk into a pig, and then back again. She explains that Transfiguration is one of the most complex and dangerous forms of magic. Anyone caught fooling around with it will be banned from the class. Although the class is amazed, they soon realize that they won't be turning furniture into animals anytime soon. Only Hermione manages to make progress by turning a match into a needle, earning a rare smile from McGonagall. Harry is relieved to see that his classmates are just as lost as he is. Transitioning to Defense Against the Dark Arts class, which everyone is excited about, turns out to be more of a joke. Professor Quirrell spends the lessons telling stories about his travels, including his encounter with a vampire in Romania and receiving a turban from an African prince for saving him from a troublesome zombie. The classroom of Professor Quirrell, portrayed by Ian Hart, was captured on film at Lacock Abbey in Wiltshire. The specific room used for filming was the warming room. The cauldron scene in the room was not a prop, but an authentic item found at the location. This cauldron is estimated to be more than 500 years old and was once utilized by cooks serving Queen Elizabeth I. During the morning meal of the first Friday, Hedwig delivers a tea invitation from Hagrid. In his next potions lesson, Harry learns that Professor Snape harbors animosity towards him, taunting Harry as their new celebrity and then publicly embarrassing him for his lack of knowledge about potion ingredients. Snape's first name, Severus, is derived from the Latin translation of the nickname of Ivan IV, the Russian star who is widely recognized as Ivan the Terrible. Harry and his friends attend charms class before potions in the book, whereas in the film they attend it much later. In the potions class, Harry loses points for not answering Snape's questions and for Neville's mistake with the quills in the cauldron. The film includes a deleted scene where Snape helps Harry with the answers and deducts points for his cheek, omitting the potion brewing scene entirely. Harry then decides to bring Ron along to Hagrid's hut for tea. The filming of the scenes at Hagrid's hut took place on site, on a small plot of land in London, which was conveniently close to Leavesden Studios. As a precautionary measure, the hut was dismantled after the shoot concluded to prevent an overwhelming influx of fans from this movie. Both Harry and Ron are taken aback by the appearance of Hagrid's large and intimidating dog, Fang, but soon realize that he is actually quite friendly. Hagrid reassures Harry that Snape's behavior is unwarranted, insisting that there is no reason for Snape to dislike him. Daniel Radcliffe has confessed that he initially felt overwhelmed by Alan Rickman's presence. The sheer power of Rickman's voice was enough to make anyone forget just how deep it was until it resonated within them. Radcliffe admitted to being terrified of Rickman during the first 3 movies, convinced that the actor despised him. However, as time went on, Rickman recognized Radcliffe's genuine passion for acting and dedication to his craft. He even cut short a vacation in Canada to watch Radcliffe perform in Equus, and made a point of attending all of his stage work while he was alive. After each performance, Rickman would take Radcliffe out and discuss his work, offering valuable advice and encouragement. Harry notices an article in the wizarding newspaper, The Daily Prophet, recounting a break-in at Gringotts Bank in a vault that had been emptied earlier that same day. He realizes that the incident occurred on his birthday, the day he and Hagrid visited Gringotts. Additionally, he recalls that Hagrid had emptied Vault 713, taking a small package with him upon departure. With a mind full of questions, Harry departs from Hagrid's company. Chapter 9: The Midnight Duel. Harry has been attending Hogwarts for approximately 2 weeks when he discovers that the Gryffindors will be having flying lessons alongside the Slytherins, much to his displeasure. Harry is not keen on spending more time with Malfoy than necessary. However, Harry soon realizes that he possesses a natural talent for flying. The class is led by Madam Hooch, who gently guides the new flyers off the ground. Additionally, the film adds a moment to this scene that never occurred in the book. While everyone is repeatedly saying "up" to summon their brooms, Ron's broom flies up too quickly and hits him in the face. Unfortunately, Neville has an accident when his broom goes out of control and he ends up breaking his wrist. Madam Hooch takes Neville to the hospital wing, instructing everyone else to remain on the ground in her absence. In the meantime, Malfoy notices a Remembrall that belongs to Neville, picks it up, and starts flying around with it. In the book, Draco Malfoy suggests leaving Neville's Remembrall on a tree for him to find. However, in the film, he proposes leaving it on the roof instead. Harry decides to pursue Malfoy, who throws the ball into the air. With a spectacular catch, Harry safely lands back on the ground. At that moment, Professor McGonagall arrives and scolds Harry, demanding that he follows her. However, instead of punishing him, McGonagall introduces Harry to Oliver Wood, the captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team, and appoints him as the new seeker for the Gryffindor team. In the book, when Professor McGonagall arrives to take Harry, she appears frustrated. One of the Patil twins and Ron attempt to explain what happened. However, in the film, McGonagall remains calm, addresses Harry by his name, and then asks him to follow her. When McGonagall takes Harry inside to appoint him as a seeker, Oliver Wood is attending Charms class with Professor Flitwick in the book. In contrast, in the film, he is participating in Defense Against the Dark Arts with Professor Quirrell. Lastly, in the film, McGonagall informs Wood that she has found him a seeker outside Quirrell's classroom. However, in the book, she takes Oliver and Harry to an empty classroom where they discover Peeves writing offensive words on a blackboard. During dinner, Harry eagerly shares the news of his Quidditch team membership with Ron, emphasizing that Wood wants it to remain a secret. In the book, McGonagall informed Harry in the presence of Oliver Wood that his father would have been immensely proud of him and that he was an exceptional Quidditch player himself during his time at Hogwarts. However, in the film, Hermione guides him, along with Ron, to a display case where Harry discovers his father's name on a trophy badge, indicating that he was a seeker. In the trophy cabinet portrayed in the film, located to the right of the Quidditch trophy, there is the Service to the School trophy bearing the partial engraving of Tom M. Riddle. This trophy and the name inscribed on it are verified by Ron in an omitted scene from the film Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. However, their conversation is interrupted when Malfoy approaches accompanied by his cronies, Vincent Crabbe and Gregory Goyle. Malfoy takes the opportunity to taunt Harry about his earlier troubles, escalating on the tension between them. In a bold move, Malfoy challenges Harry to a wizard's duel. Despite Hermione's efforts to dissuade them from breaking the school rules, Harry accepts the challenge. Later that night, as Harry and Ron sneak out, Hermione tries to stop them, but finds herself locked out of the dormitory due to the absence of the fat lady, who has gone for an evening stroll. Determined to join their friends, Hermione tags along. Neville also joins them, having forgotten the password to the common room and ended up sleeping outside on the floor. Arriving at the trophy room, the designated location for the duel, they discover that Malfoy is nowhere to be found. Suddenly, they hear the footsteps of Argus Filch and his cat, Mrs. Norris, entering the room. Realizing that Malfoy has tricked them, the children quickly hide and then make a hasty retreat. Uncertain of their destination, they accidentally find themselves in the forbidden area on the 3rd floor, where they come face to face with a large and intimidating 3-headed dog. Despite their fear, the children manage to return safely to their dormitory. Hermione scolds Harry for his actions, but also piques his curiosity by pointing out that the dog was standing on a trapdoor. The part where Malfoy challenged Harry to a duel, but actually deceived him by alerting Filch, was excluded in the film. Instead, after evading Filch and Mrs. Norris, Harry, Ron, and Hermione stumble upon Fluffy in the forbidden corridor while unintentionally entering the 3rd floor. In the book, Neville was also present with them during their initial encounter with Fluffy. Chapter 10. Halloween. Harry and Ron engage in a conversation about the mysterious object that the dog might be guarding just as the mail arrives. Among the letters, Harry receives a Nimbus 2000, a high-speed broomstick accompanied by a note from Professor McGonagall requesting his presence at Quidditch practice. In the film, Harry receives the broomstick right before his first Quidditch match, not before practice. Malfoy takes the opportunity to inform Harry that first-year students are prohibited from owning broomsticks. In an attempt to get Harry in trouble, Malfoy reports him to Professor Flitwick, who instead expresses admiration for Harry's talent after hearing from McGonagall. This doesn't happen in the film. Professor Phileas Flitwick, a wizard of part goblin descent, is the esteemed head of Ravenclaw House. Later, Harry meets Oliver Wood, who provides him with an introduction to Quidditch, explaining the different positions on a standard team and the equipment used in the game. Oliver specifically outlines Harry's role as a seeker, emphasizing that his primary objective is to avoid other players and capture the elusive Golden Snitch. As the game cannot conclude until the snitch is caught, the seeker holds the utmost importance on the team. Harry's first Quidditch training session in the book takes place at 7 p.m, whereas in the film it occurs during the daytime at an unspecified time. In the film, when Oliver Wood explains the rules of Quidditch to Harry, he says that if the Golden Snitch is caught, then they win. However, this statement is inaccurate because catching the snitch only awards 150 points. If the opposing team is leading by more than 150 points, the team that catches the snitch will actually lose, although the chances of this happening are very low. On the other hand, in the book, Wood states that whichever seeker catches the snitch wins his team an extra 150 points, so they nearly always win. This explanation is more accurate as it emphasizes that the team nearly always wins, rather than guaranteeing a victory. Bludgers, 2 of the balls employed in Quidditch, can be redirected by the beaters using their clubs. Bludger is a legitimate term denoting an imposer, referring to someone or something that imposes. On Halloween, Flitwick commences a lesson on levitation, teaching his students the Wingardium Leviosa spell. Only Hermione manages to succeed, which leads Ron to make a derogatory remark due to his wounded pride. Sadly, Hermione overhears his comment and runs off in tears, catching Harry's attention. Additionally, within the movie, Ron is depicted waving his wand rapidly up and down after failing to correctly perform the incantation. Hermione intervenes, cautioning him to cease his actions to prevent any harm to others. This particular exchange was not present in the original book. Also, when Ron attempts to levitate his feather but fails, Hermione advises him to make the wand movement longer. However, in the film, she corrects him by emphasizing the correct pronunciation of the spell, Leviosa, not Leviosa. In the movie, Seamus Finnegan experiences mishaps in Charms class, with his feather exploding, followed by his cup of water blowing up as he attempts to transfigure it into rum. The recurring theme of Seamus's spells backfiring on him serves as a running joke throughout the film series. Harry and Ron make their way to the Halloween feast, where they are met with a startling announcement from Professor Quirrell. He informs everyone about a massive troll that has infiltrated the building, causing panic among the students. Due to Peeves's absence from the film adaptation, Ron suggests that people are playing pranks, as he believes that a troll couldn't have entered on its own due to their lack of intelligence. However, in the book, Ron suspects that Peeves may have intentionally let the troll in as a Halloween prank. As the prefects guide the students back to their dormitories, Harry realizes that Hermione is unaware of the dangerous situation. Determined to warn her, they set off and unexpectedly stumble upon the troll. Without realizing the consequences, they unintentionally trap the troll in the girls' bathroom, only to discover that Hermione is trapped inside with it. In the film, Harry and Ron spot the troll's shadow emerging and quickly hide. They observe the troll entering a room, and Harry exclaims that it's going into the girls' bathroom. They then enter the bathroom to rescue Hermione. Through their combined efforts, magical abilities, and a stroke of luck, they successfully incapacitate the troll. Trolls typically stand at a height of approximately 12 feet and could weigh up to a ton. The whiskers of trolls are believed to possess magical qualities and are occasionally utilized as wand cores, although they are deemed to be of lesser quality compared to the supreme cores. These creatures have feet with 2 toes, each adorned with large toenails. Trolls exhibit a perilously aggressive and remarkably violent nature, displaying erratic conduct akin to that of giants. Furthermore, in terms of intelligence, they are notably inferior to other species. For instance, despite their shared characteristics, giants appear to possess greater intellect than trolls. Trolls display a distinct affinity for repugnant odors, including dung bombs. Similar to acromantulas, trolls have a preference for consuming human flesh. They savor it in its raw form, although they are not particularly selective about their dietary choices. Additionally, trolls harbor an appreciation for fish. Harry, Hermione, and Ron's triumph is short-lived as Professor McGonagall discovers them and begins to reprimand the boys. In a surprising turn of events, Hermione intervenes and defends Harry and Ron, claiming that they were searching for her. She fabricates a story stating that she bravely confronted the troll alone, while Harry and Ron valiantly attempted to rescue her. This act of loyalty leads to Hermione forming a bond with them. In the film, during the troll scene in the girls' bathroom, Daniel Radcliffe was not physically positioned on the troll's neck, as the movements could have resulted in serious injury. As a result, his presence was incorporated into the scene through digital effects. Also, Professor Snape and Professor Quirrell are present in the bathroom. This is where Harry notices the blood on Snape's leg for the first time. Chapter 11. Quidditch. At the start of November, the Quidditch season begins, marking Harry's debut match against Slytherin. In order to prepare himself, Harry borrows a book titled Quidditch Through the Ages from Hermione. However, their secret rendezvous with the book is interrupted when Professor Snape catches them and takes it from Harry, citing the rule that library books must not be taken outside the school premises. Harry finds this excuse feeble, and his distrust towards Snape intensifies. Furthermore, Harry notices Snape's peculiar limp. Determined to retrieve the book, Harry eavesdrops on Snape's conversation with Argus Filch, where he learns that the three-headed dog has attacked Snape, leaving a cut on his leg. This revelation only deepens Harry's suspicions. The scene where Harry loses the book Quidditch Through the Ages to Snape outside of school, leading to a deduction of 5 points from Gryffindor, is excluded in the film. The Quidditch match commences the following morning. At the start of the game, Harry quickly spots a golden snitch and begins to fly towards it. In the book, Harry is able to fly the Nimbus 2000 during training, whereas in the film, he flies it for the first time during his Quidditch match. However, the Slytherin captain intervenes and pushes him aside, resulting in a penalty. Tom Felton's grandfather appears as an uncredited extra in the Quidditch match, portraying a professor seated next to Lee Jordan. As the game progresses, Harry's broom suddenly starts to jerk uncontrollably. Hagrid suggests that only dark magic could cause such a disturbance in a broomstick's handling. Meanwhile, Hermione notices Snape staring at Harry and muttering to himself, indicating that he may be casting a curse. In an attempt to rescue Harry, the Weasley twins, who are also his teammates, take to the air. In her haste to confront Snape, Hermione accidentally knocks over Quirrell and swiftly moves behind Snape, setting his robe on fire. Miraculously, the spell on Harry's broom is broken and he regains control. He swiftly descends towards the ground and successfully catches the snitch in his mouth, narrowly avoiding swallowing it. The film showcased close to 600 visual effects shots, which required the collaboration of multiple companies. Costume designer Judiana Makovsky revamped the Quidditch uniforms, originally intending to utilize the ones featured on the American book cover, but ultimately found them to be unsatisfactory. As a result, she outfitted the Quidditch players in preppy sweaters, 19th century fencing breeches, and arm guards. Hagrid escorts Harry to his cabin along with Hermione and Ron. Ron informs Harry that Snape had cast a curse on his broomstick. Hagrid expresses doubt, questioning Snape's motive to harm Harry. Harry discloses to Hagrid about Snape's encounter with the dog in the third-floor corridor. Hagrid then tells them that the three-headed dog, Fluffy, belongs to him, and that the creature is protecting a secret known solely by Albus Dumbledore and a man named Nicholas Flamel. To enhance the realism of Fluffy, his heads were designed to move autonomously and possess distinct personalities. The three-headed dog, Fluffy, was designed based on Cerberus, the three-headed dog from Greek mythology who guards the underworld. Chapter 12, The Mirror of Erised. Christmas is drawing near. Malfoy taunts Harry about his need to remain at Hogwarts during the holiday due to his lack of parents. However, Harry is eagerly anticipating spending Christmas away from the Dursleys, especially since Ron will also be staying at Hogwarts. This is because Mr. and Mrs. Weasley are planning to visit Ron's older brother Charlie in Romania. On the day before the holiday, Hermione interrupts Ron and Harry's conversation with Hagrid to search for more information about Nicholas Flamel in the library. While exploring the restricted book section, Harry is caught by the librarian, Madame Pince, and promptly expelled from the area. In the film, Harry and Ron are playing wizard's chess in the Great Hall when Hermione informs them about the restricted section. She is totally appalled by wizard's chess and calls it barbaric. The directors made an effort to accurately portray the children's appearances as described in the novel by having Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter, wear green-coloured contact lenses, and Emma Watson, Hermione Granger, wear fake buck teeth. However, due to Radcliffe experiencing discomfort with the contacts and Watson having difficulty speaking clearly with the fake teeth, these concepts were ultimately abandoned. On Christmas Day, Harry and Ron wake up to find presents waiting for them. However, Harry's gifts are noticeably fewer in number. Hagrid gives him a flute, the Dursleys give him a 50-pence coin, Hermione gifts him some fudge and chocolate frogs, and Ron's mother has knitted him a jumper. In addition, Harry receives an invisibility cloak along with an anonymous note informing him that it once belonged to his father and advising him to use it well. In the film, only the cloak is given to Harry, with the jumper appearing in a deleted scene. In the book, Harry reads the message that accompanies the invisibility cloak after trying it on. However, in the film, Harry reads the message before putting on the cloak. Also, Ron is unaware of the cloak's true nature, but in the film, he realizes it is an invisibility cloak when Harry wears it. The movie never discloses the identity of the person who gifted Harry the invisibility cloak during Christmas. However, Professor Dumbledore shares a significant glance with Harry. In the book, it is mentioned that the cloak originally belonged to Harry's father, who entrusted it to Dumbledore for safekeeping. Dumbledore then passed it on to Harry, believing that his father intended for him to have it. Both the books and films suggest that Dumbledore gave Harry the cloak to enable him to unravel mysteries by discreetly observing and eavesdropping on conversations, which could explain Dumbledore's leniency towards Harry's rule-breaking behavior during such instances. Later that night, after a satisfying Christmas dinner and once Ron has fallen asleep, Harry decides to try on the invisibility cloak. With his presence concealed, he ventures into the restricted books section of the library. However, as soon as he opens one of the books, it starts screaming, prompting him to hastily retreat. While hiding from Filch, he stumbles upon an old classroom where he discovers a peculiar mirror in a gold frame. The mirror bears an inscription that reads, "Erised straeru oit ubicafru oit on vosi." I show not your face, but your heart's desire. Curiosity piqued, Harry gazes into the mirror and sees numerous people standing behind him. Yet, when he turns around in the room, he finds no one there. Suddenly, he realizes that two of the individuals reflected in the mirror are his deceased parents and grandparents. Desperate to communicate with them, Harry attempts to speak, but they can only respond through gestures. Harry lingers in front of the mirror for a while, but eventually, he reluctantly returns to his room. J.K. Rowling disclosed during an interview that both sets of Harry's grandparents had passed away, leaving Aunt Petunia as his sole blood relative. Rowling clarified that the decision to eliminate Harry's grandparents was made in order to create a more compelling backstory for him. It was essential for Harry to experience solitude and isolation, a recurring theme in the series, especially when he had to cope with the loss of individuals like Sirius, who had become like family to him. Rowling emphasized that there was no malicious intent behind the deaths, but involving Harry's grandparents in the Harry Potter narrative would have overly complicated matters and detracted from crucial aspects of Harry's character, such as his sense of loneliness. Harry's maternal grandparents, the parents of Lily Potter, were non-magical individuals known as Muggles. They had no connection to the wizarding world until Lily received her acceptance letter from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. In a flashback depicted in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Lily and her sister Petunia are shown playing as children before they encounter Snape. During this scene, Petunia threatens to reveal Lily's magical abilities to their mother. It can be assumed that Lily's parents were alive at that time. Furthermore, Lily and James married at a young age and had Harry when they were both 20 years old. According to J.K. Rowling, Lily's parents passed away from what she refers to as a normal Muggle death. This event likely occurred within the approximately 10-year period between Lily attending Hogwarts and her marriage to James Potter. However, apart from this information, no further details are provided regarding the timing or circumstances of their demise. Rowling provides additional information about the parents of James Potter, Harry's father, revealing that they were advanced in age when they had James. As a result, James became their only child and was consequently spoiled. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Sirius mentions that he sought refuge with James and his parents whenever he left his own home, indicating that they were alive for a significant portion of James's time at Hogwarts. However, due to their advanced age in the wizarding world, Rowling explains that they fell victim to a wizarding illness, which ultimately prevented them from being a part of Harry's life. The following evening, Harry takes Ron to the mirror room. Ron does not see Harry's parents in the mirror, but instead sees himself holding the Quidditch cup. Mrs. Norris, Filch's vigilant cat, spots them. On the third evening, Ron is fearful of getting caught and refuses to return, as he does not trust the mirror. Therefore, Harry goes back alone. There, he encounters Albus Dumbledore. Dumbledore clarifies to Harry that the mirror, known as the Mirror of Erist, reflects the deepest desires of the viewer. Harry is relieved to discover that Dumbledore is not upset. Nevertheless, he cautions Harry that individuals have wasted away and gone insane in front of the mirror. Dumbledore also mentions that the mirror will be relocated and instructs Harry not to seek it out. When Harry inquires about what Dumbledore sees in the mirror, his response is that he sees himself holding a pair of socks. In the mirror scene, Harry was originally supposed to see his entire family according to the book. However, when Dumbledore interrupts Harry's moment with the mirror, it is suggested that he sees his family as well, as indicated by the back of the mirror's frame. Instead of the 3-day duration in the book, Harry encounters the Mirror of Erist 3 times on Christmas in the film. However, the scene where Harry doesn't feel like having fun is only present in a deleted scene. Steven Spielberg was initially in talks to direct the movie, but ultimately turned down the offer. He had expressed interest in making it an animated film with Haley Joel Osment voicing Harry Potter, or incorporating elements from future books. However, Spielberg decided against it, stating that he found it too easy and not challenging enough. There were rumors that J.K. Rowling rejected Spielberg's vision of setting the story in an American high school. Despite this, Rowling clarified that she did not have a say in choosing directors for the movies. Chapter 13. Harry struggles to erase the memory of his parents from his mind. Despite the difficulty, Quidditch practice intensifies. With Snape announced as the referee for the upcoming match, Malfoy casts a leg locker curse on Neville, prompting Harry to uplift Neville's spirits by declaring him to be worth 12 of Malfoy. The Quidditch match between Hufflepuff and Gryffindor, with Snape as the referee, is not depicted in the movie. The confrontation between Malfoy and Neville is also omitted. A sudden recollection of Nicholas Flamel's name on a chocolate frog card leads Harry to Hermione, who recalls seeing the name in a book from the library. The team learns that Flamel was a renowned alchemist credited with creating the Philosopher's Stone, capable of transmuting metals into gold and producing the elixir of life, a potion granting immortality. Nicholas Flamel, credited with creating the Philosopher's Stone, has been featured in various novels alongside characters like Batman, Indiana Jones, and Robert Langdon from the Da Vinci Code. He is thought to have been a genuine alchemist born in France around 1330, who some believed successfully created the Philosopher's Stone. His death in 1418 was shrouded in mystery, leading to rumors that he had lived for centuries. The age of Flamel is accurately portrayed in the book and movie. He also made an appearance in Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. In the movie adaptation, Harry, Ron, and Hermione come across the connection to Nicholas Flamel and the Philosopher's Stone through a book instead of Albus Dumbledore's chocolate frog card. However, there is a deleted scene that depicts them discovering the connection through a chocolate frog card, which was ultimately changed during the editing process. The Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Hufflepuff unfolds with Snape showing his usual bias as the referee. Meanwhile, in the stands, Ron and Neville find themselves in a scuffle with Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle after Malfoy's disrespectful comments towards their team. Harry secures victory by catching the snitch in record time, but Ron misses the moment due to his altercation with Malfoy, and Neville ends up in the hospital wing from his fight with Crabbe and Goyle. All of these events have been left out of the movie. Later, Harry observes Snape heading into the Forbidden Forest on a broomstick and follows him, encountering Quirrell and discussing the Philosopher's Stone. Harry suspects Snape of pressuring Quirrell to help him obtain the stone for personal gain, causing concern for Ron and Hermione, who worry about Quirrell's potential betrayal. In the film, Harry eavesdrops on Quirrell and Snape outside the library on Christmas Eve, not in the Forbidden Forest as portrayed in the book. Additionally, due to this alteration, Filch interrupts Snape and Quirrell's conversation in the film by mentioning a student being out of bed with Harry's lamp. However, in the book, after Harry accidentally drops the lamp in the library's restricted section, Filch goes to fetch Professor Snape just as Harry sneaks into the room where the Mirror of Erised is hidden. Chapter 14. Harry, Ron, and Hermione convene with Hagrid, who affirms that the stone is safeguarded at Hogwarts. Hermione persuades him to divulge the enchantments protecting it. Fluffy, the three-headed dog, is under Hagrid's care, in addition to enchantments from Professors Sprout, Flitwick, McGonagall, Quirrell, and Snape. Following this, Harry expresses discomfort with the sweltering temperature in Hagrid's abode, only to stumble upon a Norwegian ridgeback dragon egg, which he christens Norbert once it hatches. The Norwegian ridgeback, a dragon species indigenous to Norway, primarily inhabit the northern mountains. It is believed to bear a striking resemblance to the Hungarian horntail in terms of its physical appearance. Save for the dark ridges adorning its back, the slightly more brownish texture of its scales, and its comparatively less aggressive demeanor. Possessing venomous fangs, it displays a peculiar preference for large mammals, even those dwelling in water, a behavior uncommon among dragons. Its eggs boast a black hue, and young ridgebacks exhibit the remarkable ability to breathe fire at an earlier stage compared to other dragon breeds, typically within 1 to 3 months. Notably, female ridgebacks tend to exhibit greater ferocity than their male counterparts. Malfoy, who has been eavesdropping, uncovers the dragon. In order to resolve the issue, they persuade Hagrid to dispatch the dragon to Ron's brother Charlie. Ron sustains a bite from the dragon and is escorted to Madame Pomfrey. Harry and Hermione clandestinely transport Norbert in a crate up to the highest tower under Harry's invisibility cloak, and on their way they witness Professor McGonagall escorting Malfoy to detention for violating curfew and spreading falsehoods about Harry and a dragon. They pass the crate to Charlie's associates and descend the stairs, only to realize belatedly that they have left the invisibility cloak behind when they encounter Filch. In the film, Ron doesn't persuade Hagrid to send the dragon to his brother Charlie. He only finds out about this later. Ron doesn't get bitten by it either. Chapter 15. Filch escorts Harry and Hermione to McGonagall's office, where they encounter Neville. McGonagall, visibly disappointed, deducts 50 points from each of them and assigns them detention, which they will serve alongside Malfoy. As a result, their standing among their peers diminishes. It is noted in the book that the other Gryffindors and Hufflepuffs, Ravenclaws, were deeply upset with the trio for losing a significant amount of points. This emotional reaction is not depicted in the film. aside from Gryffindor's initial disappointment at losing the House Cup at the conclusion. However, a magazine article on the DVD release of the film mentions a scene that was filmed but not included in the final cut, showing Harry and Ron observing the House Point hourglasses in the Great Hall. Shortly before exams, Harry overhears Professor Quirrell, who appears to be in distress. Concerned, Harry rushes to the library to inform Ron and Hermione. They suspect Snape of threatening Quirrell and planning to steal the stone imminently. Hermione proposes seeking Dumbledore's help, but Harry declines, citing lack of evidence. Harry, Hermione, and Neville are informed by Professor McGonagall that their detention will commence at 11 o'clock that night. In the film, Neville doesn't get detention, Ron does. In the book, Filch escorts the children to the Forbidden Forest, where Hagrid awaits. In the film adaptation, the term forbidden is altered to dark without a clear explanation. However, renaming it the Dark Forest could be more logical, considering the contradiction of labeling it as forbidden and then assigning students to enter it for detention, especially at midnight. The Forbidden Forest origins can be traced back to a period ranging from the 1st millennium AD to the 19th century, as indicated by the Wizarding Examinations Authority's Wizard's Ordinary Magic and Basic Aptitude Test. It is believed that the forest may have initially been a small wood looked after by a group of centaurs. Throughout the centuries following the establishment of the school, numerous students have gone missing in the forest. The forest harbours a diverse array of creatures. Naturally, it is inhabited by ordinary non-magical wildlife, but it also serves as a dwelling for centaurs, unicorns, acromantula, thestrals, bowtruckles, and potentially numerous other creatures. Additionally, there are whispers of the presence of werewolves within its depths. Hagrid presents them with silver unicorn blood and explains that they must locate the injured unicorn. They divide into two groups, with Hagrid leading Harry and Hermione, while Neville and Malfoy accompany Fang. Along the way, Hagrid encounters two centaurs named Ronan and Bane, but unfortunately, they provide no valuable information. Neither of these two centaurs make an appearance in the film. A centaur is a mystical being with the upper body of a human, including the head and arms, seamlessly connected to the lower body of a horse. Despite their humanoid appearance, centaurs are distinct species in their own right and not a hybrid of two different creatures. Renowned for their exceptional skills in archery, healing magic, divination, and astronomy, centaurs boast a fascinating and extensive background. Centaurs, despite their human intelligence, are voluntarily classified as beasts by the British Ministry of Magic. This decision was made because they are dissatisfied with being grouped together with hags and vampires, who are recognized as dark creatures. Suddenly, Hagrid spots red sparks in the sky, indicating that the other group is in trouble. He rushes to their aid and reprimands Malfoy for startling Neville, causing him to send up the sparks. Hagrid then switches Harry and Neville, sending Harry off with Malfoy instead. In the film, Harry and Malfoy take Fang because he's afraid and insists on having the dog protect him. However, Hagrid warns him that Fang is a coward. Hagrid goes with Ron and Hermione. Malfoy is furious and warns him that he will tell his father about their punishment and that there will be repercussions. Eventually, they stumble upon the lifeless body of a unicorn and witness a figure drinking its blood. Malfoy panics and flees with Fang, leaving Harry behind. Fortunately, a centaur named Firenze comes to Harry's rescue, explaining that unicorn blood can sustain a person on the brink of death, but condemns them to a half-life. Those who resort to slaying a unicorn and drinking its blood would supposedly face a cursed existence, although the exact consequences remain shrouded in mystery. Due to its restricted nature, the sale of unicorn blood is tightly regulated by the British Ministry of Magic, rendering it illegal. Mr. Mulpepper's apothecary in Diagon Alley had a notice displayed outside, warning customers against inquiring about the substance. Firenze and Harry Potter share the belief that only individuals with nothing left to lose and everything to gain would be willing to partake in the consumption of unicorn blood. Additionally, unicorn blood is known to be a crucial component in a potion that could provide a temporary physical form for a soul without a body. Firenze reveals that the individual consuming the blood seeks to stay alive until they can obtain the elixir of life and acquire the Philosopher's Stone. He also prompts Harry to consider if he knows anyone who has been yearning for power for years, leading Harry to realize that the mysterious figure is a weakened yet still living Voldemort. Centaurs are renowned for their expertise in divination. The centaurs residing in the Forbidden Forest often hint at their ability to foresee the future, such as when Firenze predicts to Harry Potter that their paths would cross again. Additionally, discussions between Firenze and Bane reference a significant period between the First and Second Wizarding Wars. In the book, Harry is given a ride on Firenze's back, and the centaur accompanies him back to Hagrid along with Draco, Fang, Hermione, and Neville. In contrast, the film excludes this scene, and instead, Draco and Fang join Hagrid, Ron, and Hermione in returning to the location of the incident to search for Harry, Firenze, and the deceased unicorn. Upon returning to the common room, Harry informs Hermione and Ron that Voldemort is in the forest and Snape is seeking the stone to aid in the restoration of Voldemort's powers. Later, as Harry retires to his bed, he discovers that his invisibility cloak has been given back to him. In the scene following the Forbidden Forest, Hermione utters Voldemort's name. Throughout the book, she addresses him as you-know-who. This inconsistency is evident when she mentions Voldemort's name in the 5th movie, as though it is the first time she has ever said it. Chapter 16, Through the Trapdoor. Upon completing their exams, Harry becomes aware of a peculiar coincidence involving Hagrid's strong desire for a dragon, and the sudden appearance of a stranger who possessed one to offer. Inquisitive, Harry, Ron, and Hermione rush to inquire about the mysterious man who bestowed Norbert upon Hagrid. However, Hagrid confesses that he never saw the man's face as he always kept his hood up. Additionally, Hagrid mentions their conversation about Hogwarts and the three-headed dog, Fluffy. The physical appearance of Fluffy, the three-headed dog, is derived from the Staffordshire Bull Terrier breed. Hagrid also reveals that the stranger provided him with drinks while extracting information from him. Inadvertently, Hagrid reveals how to bypass Fluffy, prompting Harry, Ron, and Hermione to embark on a journey. They make their way to Dumbledore's office, only to find McGonagall, who informs them that he has departed for London. When Harry discloses their knowledge of the stone, McGonagall adamantly asserts that no one could steal it. However, the trio realizes that Dumbledore has been lured away and that Snape intends to seize the stone that very night. In the book, when Harry, Ron, and Hermione inform Professor McGonagall about their need to meet with Professor Dumbledore, Harry initially starts to mention that Snape might attempt to steal the Philosopher's Stone. However, he quickly corrects himself and simply states that someone is planning to steal it. Conversely, in the film, Harry directly states that someone is going to try and steal it, without mentioning Snape. The film omits the scene where Harry, Ron, and Hermione manage to drive away Peeves by pretending to be the Bloody Baron while wearing the invisibility cloak. Consequently, they decide to venture out themselves in an attempt to retrieve it. After Hermione employs a full-body bind curse on Neville for impeding their departure, they proceed to the third-floor room and commence their arduous exploration of the 7 chambers housing the Philosopher's Stone. To their surprise, they discover the door slightly ajar, with a harp lying on the floor. Harry is playing the flute that Hagrid gave him for Christmas, while Fluffy goes back to sleep. Additionally, in the book, the trio possesses a flute that can lull Fluffy to sleep. However, in the film, they enter the room under the invisibility cloak and discover a self-playing harp enchanted by Quirrell. Fluffy remains asleep until the enchantment wears off. Furthermore, in the book, the trio finds the harp under Fluffy's paw, whereas in the film, the harp is positioned at a distance from Fluffy and is seen playing rather than being under its paw. They proceed to go down through the trapdoor and end up in Professor Sprout's room, where they encounter Devil's Snare. Hermione manages to light a fire and drive it away. In the movie adaptation, when Harry, Ron, and Hermione find themselves trapped in the clutches of the Devil's Snare, they employ different strategies to escape. Hermione and Harry manage to break free by remaining calm and relaxed, while Hermione uses Lumos Solum to save Ron. However, in the original book version, Hermione takes a different approach. She quickly locates a damp wall and frees herself before the plant can firmly grasp her. Furthermore, she uses bluebell flames to release both Harry and Ron from the snare. The roles of panic and calmness are also reversed between the book and the film. In the book, Hermione is the one who panics during the encounter with the Devil's Snare, and it is Ron who must snap her out of it. However, in the film adaptation, this dynamic is switched, with Ron being the one who panics and Hermione stepping in to calm him down. They move on to the next room, which belongs to Professor Flitwick. In this room, they find flying keys and broomsticks. Harry discovers a silver key with a broken wing that stands out from the rest, catches it, and uses it to unlock the next door. Another notable difference occurs during the scene where Harry, Ron, and Hermione chase the winged keys. In the book, each of them seizes a broomstick and takes off into the air to pursue the keys. However, in the film, only Harry does so, as there is only one broom available. Hermione's proficiency in spells, Harry's role as a seeker, and Ron's strategic abilities in chess are all showcased individually. The adjacent room belongs to Professor McGonagall and features a sizable chessboard for a round of wizard's chess that Ron assists them in winning, albeit at the expense of sacrificing himself and being knocked unconscious. Ron opted for the center counter opening in the ultimate chess game. This particular opening is considered to be quite unpredictable and challenging for both players due to its asymmetrical nature, making it a rare occurrence for the game to end in a draw. In the book, the chess game illustrates the pieces simply knocking each other out and dragging captured pieces off the edge of the board. In the movie, the chess game was portrayed with the pieces destroying each other, presumably to be fixed with reparo at the end of the game. The chess position for the wizard chess game task was devised by international master Jeremy Silman. Instead of sacrificing Harry on c5 to achieve a quicker checkmate against white, Ron opted to sacrifice himself in order to save Harry. Although Harry's move was not an immediate checkmate, the next move would have resulted in mate, as the queen could have blocked on e3, only to be captured by Harry on the following move. In the film, Hermione stays behind with Ron to get help. Harry continues on by himself. Harry and Hermione proceed to the next room, which is Professor Quirrell's, and discover an unconscious troll sprawled on the ground. Finally, they step into Professor Snape's chamber and come across 7 potions in bottles, accompanied by a scroll providing hints on which one to consume in order to progress. It is mentioned that 3 bottles contain poison, 2 contain nettle wine, 1 will backtrack the drinker, and the remaining 1 will allow the drinker to advance into the following room. Hermione informs Harry that it is a test of logic rather than magic, a challenge that stumps most wizards. She successfully solves the riddle, and following Harry's guidance, she drinks the potion that enables her to return through the purple flame, while Harry consumes the potion that propels him into the black flame and the ultimate room, where he is taken aback by the individual he encounters. On the journey to the Philosopher's Stone, each obstacle was set up by a teacher. While this was likely the case in the film as well, it was not explicitly mentioned. Quirrell's second mountain troll and Snape's potion riddle were left out in the movie, although they are included in the video game. Due to these exclusions, Hermione remains with Ron after he is injured in the chess match at McGonagall's room, instead of accompanying Harry all the way to the potions room before turning back. Chapter 17, The Man with Two Faces. In the room, it is Quirrell that Harry sees, not Snape. Harry is taken aback when Quirrell reveals that Snape was actually protecting him and that no one would suspect Quirrell of attempting to steal the stone. In the book, Quirrell was aware that Hermione was the one responsible for setting Snape's robes on fire, as he mentioned she had knocked him over during the Gryffindor-Slytherin Quidditch match. However, in the film, he does not seem to be aware of this, as Hermione was hidden under the stands and another wizard had knocked Quirrell over instead. Harry's attention is drawn to the Mirror of Erised, which Quirrell believes holds the key to obtaining the stone. To divert Quirrell's focus from the mirror, Harry engages him in conversation. Quirrell discloses that he serves Lord Voldemort and explains the complicated history between Snape, Harry's father, and himself. Quirrell seeks assistance from his master to acquire the stone, and a sinister voice instructs him to use Harry. In the film, Quirrell does not mention Snape's history with Harry's father, as students who despised each other. Harry is instructed to gaze into the mirror, where he witnesses his reflection retrieving and returning the stone to his own pocket. Harry shares with Quirrell that he envisions himself shaking hands with Dumbledore after Gryffindor wins the House Cup. The snake-like voice accuses Harry of lying, prompting Quirrell to unveil the shocking truth on the back of his head. Instead of Quirrell's head, there is another face with red eyes and a snake-like slit for a nose. Harry realizes that this is Voldemort's face, and Voldemort demands the stone from him. In the book, Quirrell turns around to face Voldemort towards Harry. On the other hand, in the film, Quirrell does not turn around, and Harry sees Voldemort's reflection in the Mirror of Erised instead. Harry's parents are shown in the Mirror of Erised in the film, where Voldemort offers to bring them back if Harry gives him the stone. However, in the book, Voldemort tells Harry that his mother needn't have died and urges him to hand over the stone to prevent Lily's sacrifice from being in vain. Despite the pressure, Harry refuses and attempts to flee, but Quirrell captures him. However, upon physical contact with Harry's skin, Quirrell experiences excruciating pain and develops boils in the affected area. In a desperate move, Harry clings onto Quirrell's face and arm, enduring the searing agony in his head until he loses consciousness, just as his arm is forcefully torn away. Additionally, in the book, Quirrell snaps his fingers to conjure ropes that bind Harry, a detail omitted from the film. When Harry tries to flee from Quirrell Voldemort with the stone in his pocket by retracing his steps up the stairs, Voldemort commands that he must stop him, and Quirrell snaps his fingers, causing fire to surround the room, preventing Harry from escaping. In the book, Voldemort kills Quirrell by causing his head to burn, leading to his demise. On the other hand, in the film, Harry defeats Quirrell by touching his face, causing him to disintegrate into dust. Additionally, when Harry grabs Quirrell's face, his entire body disintegrates, allowing Voldemort to escape and leaving Harry unconscious. In the book, Harry is unconscious when Quirrell dies, while in the film, he witnesses Quirrell's demise. Upon awakening in the hospital wing, Dumbledore is present to inform him that Quirrell's attempt to obtain the stone was unsuccessful and that the stone has been destroyed. However, Dumbledore emphasizes that there are still other means through which Voldemort can make a comeback. Despite being unable to be killed, Voldemort abandoned Quirrell to his demise. Dumbledore proceeds to explain that the reason Quirrell couldn't harm Harry was because his mother sacrificed herself to protect him, shielding him with her love. Harry shares with Dumbledore the information Quirrell had previously disclosed about Snape's animosity towards him, stemming from Snape's hatred for Harry's father. In response, Dumbledore clarifies that Snape was reluctantly safeguarding Harry this year as a way to repay a debt owed to James Potter for saving his life during their time at Hogwarts. Ron and Hermione also pay Harry a visit, revealing that Slytherin secured first place in the House Cup. As Harry is unable to participate in the championship Quidditch match, Ravenclaw effortlessly emerged victorious until Madame Pomfrey ushers Ron and Hermione out. Later, Hagrid arrives and presents Harry with a book containing photographs of his parents and relatives. Harry is reunited with Ron and Hermione in the hospital wing in the book, whereas in the movie he finds them standing at the top of a staircase. Hagrid presents Harry with a photo album of his family at the hospital in the book, but in the film he gives it to him at the end of term as they are about to board the Hogwarts Express. Robbie Coltrane's attire and portrayal in Blackadder's Christmas Carol closely resemble his character as Hagrid. Furthermore, there are claims that J.K. Rowling had expressed her intention for Robbie Coltrane to play the role of Hagrid in the movies from the beginning, implying that the aforementioned special might have influenced the conception of Hagrid. This influence extends to the depiction of Hagrid's appearance, as well as the decision to cast Robbie Coltrane as the embodiment of how Hagrid was envisioned to look in the Harry Potter films. The next day, during the final feast of the term, Dumbledore distributes some additional points for the recent events. Ron and Hermione receive 50 points each, while Harry receives 60 points, resulting in a tie with Slytherin for first place. Dumbledore acknowledges the difficulty of standing up to enemies, but also the greater challenge of standing up to friends, as Neville did. As a result, Neville is awarded 10 more points, the highest number of house points he has ever received. This victory places Gryffindor in the lead, winning the House Cup amidst much celebration from everyone except the Slytherins. Gryffindor students are overjoyed, and even Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw are pleased to see Slytherin's defeat. After packing their trunks, they board the Hogwarts Express to return to the Muggle world. Before heading home, Harry, Ron, and Hermione bid farewell to their friends. The book includes an epilogue where Harry and his friends return to their families, including the Dursleys, while this scene is omitted in the film. Chris Columbus, the producer and director, expressed his dissatisfaction with the visual effects in this film during interviews, describing them as rushed and below expectations. Despite this, he made efforts to enhance the visual effects for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Nevertheless, the movie still received a BAFTA nomination for Best Visual Effects. The Harry Potter movie with the most Academy Award nominations is this one, with a total of 3. The only other film in the franchise to achieve this feat was the final installment, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Additionally, this particular movie is the sole Harry Potter film to receive an Oscar nomination for Best Costume. Chapter 1: The Worst Birthday. Harry Potter has come back to the Dursleys' residence for the summer break in the middle of 1992, and his situation is dire. During the summer, the Dursleys have grown increasingly afraid of Harry's newfound magical abilities, leading them to confiscate all of his magical belongings, such as his wand, broomstick, spellbooks, etc., immediately upon his return home. Additionally, they have forbidden Harry from uttering words related to magic within the house, as evidenced by Uncle Vernon's angry outburst when Harry mentions the phrase, "say the magic word," which actually means please. Vernon does mention that Harry is ungrateful. He states that they have looked after Harry since he was an infant, provided him with their best meals, and even gave him Dudley's spare room out of their kindness. The movie suggests that the Dursleys gave Harry Dudley's old bedroom after his first year at Hogwarts, but in reality, he was given the room just before his first year at school in the previous book, as a way to prevent the Hogwarts acceptance letters from reaching Harry. The film does not include the scene where the Dursleys forbid Harry from uttering the word magic. Harry starts to worry about how his professors at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry will react if he returns to them without completing his homework, and whether he will be barred from the Gryffindor House Quidditch team due to his inability to practice. However, the Dursleys have allowed him to keep his pet snowy owl, Hedwig, although they have secured her cage with a padded lock to prevent her from leaving during the day or night in order to avoid arousing suspicion from the neighbors. Naturally, this arrangement does not bode well for the owl. Whenever she becomes bored, her screeches echo throughout the house, causing an irritated Vernon to caution Harry that if he cannot control her, she will have to be removed. On Harry's 12th birthday, which falls on July 31st, he experiences an overwhelming sense of loneliness. Hogwarts and his dear friends, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger, are dearly missed. Throughout the entire summer, neither Ron nor Hermione have sent him a single letter, not even to extend their birthday wishes. To add to his sadness, it seems that the Dursleys have also forgotten about his special day. Their primary focus lies on an upcoming dinner that evening, where Vernon, a drill salesman, aspires to strike a lucrative business agreement with a wealthy builder, Mr. Mason. The Dursleys' sole concern is that Harry remains confined to his room for the evening, ensuring he makes no noise and essentially disappears. Over breakfast, Vernon instructs his wife, Petunia, and their son, Dudley, to practice their conversations with the guests. While Uncle Vernon and his son Dudley busy themselves with purchasing dinner jackets in town, Harry seeks solace in the garden to avoid Aunt Petunia's cleaning endeavors. There, he sings a melancholic rendition of Happy Birthday to himself. As he gazes into the hedge, his attention is abruptly captured by a pair of immense green eyes peering back at him from within the foliage. When Dudley approaches and begins taunting him for not having a birthday celebration, Harry's irritation grows, prompting him to frighten Dudley away by pretending to cast a spell that would strip the bush bare. Unfortunately, Petunia emerges from the house upon Dudley's call and punishes her nephew by striking him with a soapy frying pan. She then assigns Harry some chores to complete while leaving him with little time before the arrival of the Masons. As promised, Harry ascends to his room without making a sound during the party. However, upon reaching his room, he discovers an unexpected visitor sitting on his bed. The film doesn't show any of these events, including the creature hiding in the bushes, and any of the extra arguments between Harry and the Dursleys. Chapter 2: Dobby's Warning. The small creature perched on Harry's bed possesses bulging green eyes, bat-like ears, and is dressed in a ragged pillowcase. Harry, still taken aback by its presence, identifies it as the same creature that had been observing him from the bushes earlier that day. The creature stands and introduces itself as Dobby the house elf, prompting Harry to offer a seat on the bed. Dobby breaks into loud sobs upon being treated as an equal by a wizard, causing a momentary pause in the voices of the dinner party guest downstairs. When Harry remarks that Dobby must not have encountered many kind wizards, the house elf begins to bang his head against the window, attributing his actions to self-imposed punishment for speaking ill of his masters, claiming that he was obligated to serve them until he dies. House elves were commonly employed by ancient wizarding families residing in grand residences such as mansions. They dutifully served the wizards and witches, carrying out every command given to them, unless they were granted their freedom. The only way for a house elf to be liberated was if their master bestowed upon them a set of clothes. House elves possess a unique form of magic that does not require the use of wands. Despite their diminutive stature and absence of wands, their magical abilities are remarkably powerful. Additionally, house elves are responsible for crafting elf-made wine. In the book, upon entering his room, Harry finds Dobby sitting silently on his bed. But in the film adaptation, Dobby can be seen gleefully jumping on the bed and laughing. A ball on a stick portrayed the character of Dobby during the filming process. Dobby's ears were inspired by Max, a dog from the art department who would often rest beneath the desks of the designers. Dobby commotion alerts the people downstairs. Upon hearing Uncle Vernon approaching upstairs, Harry swiftly conceals the elf in his closet, just before Vernon enters and reprimands his nephew for the disturbance, which disrupted the punchline of his Japanese golfer joke. Once his uncle departs, Harry releases Dobby. Dobby aims to stop Harry from going back to Hogwarts because he claims it is dangerous. Harry, however, asserts his determination to return to Hogwarts, emphasizing the importance of his friendships there, despite not hearing from them. Unexpectedly, Dobby discloses that he has taken all of Harry's letters and offers them to him on the condition that he stays away from Hogwarts. Harry responds that he needs to go back to Hogwarts, prompting Dobby to jump off the bed and cast a spell on a violet pudding, making the dessert float in the air. However, Dobby's efforts to convince Harry to stay fail, as he ultimately makes the pudding crash to the floor. In the movie, Dobby is depicted as using his levitation powers to transport the cake into the sitting room, where he then drops it onto Mrs. Mason. But it isn't an accident, he does it on purpose. After Dobby disapparates, Harry is immediately blamed for the incident. In the book, whenever Dobby disapparates, the customary loud crack resonates. Nevertheless, in the cinematic adaptations, Dobby materializes and vanishes silently. However, the manner in which he accomplishes this varies across different films. In the present film, he gradually fades away, as if carried away by the wind. Uncle Vernon hurriedly ushers the startled Masons into the dining room, while Harry takes responsibility for cleaning up the mess. In a fit of anger, Uncle Vernon threatens to punish Harry severely. Just when it seems like the situation is under control, an owl from the Ministry of Magic arrives promptly, causing Mrs. Mason to flee in terror due to her intense fear of birds. The Masons' departure in the film was caused by the cake dropping on Mrs. Mason, whereas in the book it was due to Mrs. Mason's phobia of birds triggered by an owl sent by the Ministry of Magic regarding the illegal use of the hover charm at the Dursleys' residence. The owl delivers a warning stating that Harry has violated the decree for the reasonable restriction of underage wizardry. Surprisingly, Harry is not punished, possibly because it is his first offense. This scene was completely cut from the film, and the viewers are not made aware that Harry got caught out by the Ministry of Magic. Only in the third film, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, does Minister Fudge mention the offense. However, upon realizing that Harry is not permitted to use magic outside of Hogwarts, Uncle Vernon locks him in his room. Uncle Vernon's reasoning is that if Harry were to use magic to escape, he would be expelled from school anyway. Since the implementation of the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy in 1692, the majority of individuals without magical abilities remain oblivious to the existence of magic and the wizarding realm. Wizards and witches have effectively created their own society, which operate independently from the non-magical world. However, there are a few exceptions to this separation, including immediate family members of magical individuals and high-ranking government officials, such as the British Prime Minister. The improper use of Magic Office is responsible for prosecuting violations of the Statute of Secrecy, while the misuse of Muggle Artifacts Office work to prevent enchanted items from falling into the hands of Muggles. Nevertheless, there are certain connections between the Muggle and magical realms. For instance, on occasion, Muggles would enter into matrimony with wizards or witches, consequently gaining knowledge of the enchanting wizarding world. Muggles sometimes give birth to a magical child. The common belief is that this happens when a squib has married into the family in the past, thereby bringing the possibility of magic into the lineage. This latent potential would often manifest after several generations. Certain Muggles know about the existence of the wizarding world, yet deliberately choose to disregard it. One such individual is of course Vernon Dursley, who is well aware that his sister-in-law possessed magical abilities. However, he purposefully remained ignorant of the wizarding world until the arrival of his nephew, Harry Potter. Chapter 3: The Burrow. Harry is punished for a total of 3 days until Hope arrives. The Dursleys' plans are thwarted when Ron, Fred, and George Weasley, concerned about not receiving any communication from Harry throughout the summer, take it upon themselves to borrow their father's flying Ford Anglia and come to Harry's aid. Harry wakes up from a bad dream of someone tapping on his cage. He glances out of his barred window and spots his closest friend, Ron Weasley, seated in a car, hovering in midair, being driven or flown by his twin older brothers. The Ford Anglia, owned by the Weasleys, is identical in colour and model to the car that J.K. Rowling and her childhood best friend used to drive in. Rowling drew inspiration from her nostalgic experiences with the car when incorporating it into her book and then the film adaptation. The four boys work together to remove the metal bars from Harry's window. Fred and George, known for their mischievous nature, skillfully manipulate the lock on Harry's door and silently go down the stairs to retrieve Harry's trunk and his Nimbus 2000. Although they successfully make their escape through the window, Hedwig, the owl, emits a piercing screech, arousing the wrath of Uncle Vernon, who hastily ascends the stairs in a fit of anger. This leads to a competition, as the Weasley brothers tug on Harry's arms while Vernon pulls on his legs. Ultimately, the Weasleys emerge victorious and the group departs into the night sky. The Dursleys are awakened by Hedwig's screech in the book, whereas in the movie they were roused by the sound of the bars crashing onto the grass. Harry's trunk is securely stored in the cupboard under the stairs in the book, where Fred and George manage to sneak into the house and skillfully pick the locks of both Harry's room and the cupboard. However, in the film adaptation, Harry's trunk is simply placed in his room, and Fred and George do not need to sneak into the house at all. In the book, Harry forgets Hedwig, but he manages to reach her just in the nick of time. In the movie, Harry remembers everything. In the book, it is mentioned that during Harry's escape from the Dursleys, all members of the Dursley family make attempts to hinder his escape, but ultimately find themselves hanging from the window. However, in the film adaptation, only Uncle Vernon is shown trying to impede Harry's escape, leading to his own comedic fall out of the window and into a bush. This particular scene was designed to add a humorous touch to the overall sequence. During their journey to the burrow, Harry starts sharing his encounter with Dobby, the mischievous house elf. As he narrates the incident, Fred and George chime in with some intriguing information about house elves. Apparently, these magical creatures are usually owned by wealthy and old wizarding families. This revelation sparks a thought in Harry's mind. Could Dobby belong to Draco Malfoy, his least favourite person at Hogwarts? Convinced that Draco must have sent his house elf to sabotage Harry's return to school, he confides in the mischievous twins. To Harry's surprise, they add another layer to the story. Lucius Malfoy, Draco's father, was a devoted follower of Voldemort, the notorious Dark Wizard. This connection between Draco and the Malfoy family only strengthens Harry's suspicion. The Death Eaters were Lord Voldemort's most devoted supporters. They were a group mainly made up of wizards and witches who believed in the superiority of pure bloods and dabbled in the dark arts without any hesitation, showing no respect for wizarding laws. Some of them were coerced into joining out of fear or blackmail. During the First Wizarding War, the Death Eaters engaged in a range of sinister activities, including covert attacks, espionage, brutal torture, and the merciless slaughter of both magical folk and innocent muggles. These malevolent acts were carried out by the Death Eaters, often under the command of Voldemort, although not exclusively. As part of their sinister modus operandi, the Death Eaters would leave the ominous dark mark at each location where they committed their gruesome murders. This chilling symbol struck fear into the hearts of the entire wizarding community. However, the Death Eaters faced staunch opposition from the Order of the Phoenix, an organization established by the wise Albus Dumbledore, as well as the Ministry of Magic. These forces retaliated against the Death Eaters' abhorrent crimes, with the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement leading the charge. Following Lord Voldemort's initial downfall, Lucius cunningly evaded imprisonment by weaving a web of lies, claiming he had been coerced under the Imperius Curse. This curse is part of the trio of unforgivable curses. Once it's cast with precision, the victim falls entirely under the caster's command. Despite Lucius's deceit, he and his family retained their esteemed status among the social elite. However, Lucius couldn't conceal his deep-rooted prejudice, which he shamelessly displayed time and again. As the conversation continues, the boys shift their focus to Mr. Weasley, who happens to work at the Ministry of Magic in the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts department. It turns out that Mr. Weasley is responsible for fixing the chaos caused by enchanted objects gone awry. The twins explain that their father has a peculiar fascination with muggles and purchased the car specifically to experiment with spells and tinker around with it. In the midst of this captivating discussion, Harry's mind races with new possibilities and connections. Little does he know that this car, with its own magical secrets, will soon become an integral part of his own extraordinary journey. In the movie, Ron greets Harry with a happy birthday as they depart from 4 Privet Drive. This scene differs from the book, where Harry's birthday coincided with the Masons' visit, and Ron did not wish him a happy birthday. Additionally, it is worth noting that in the film, the Weasleys rescue Harry on the same evening, whereas in the book, they rescue him from the Dursleys early the following morning. At the crack of dawn, they reach the Weasleys' ramshackle and chaotic abode known as the Burrow, where they are greeted by a furious and anxious Mrs. Weasley. Harry is astounded by the remarkable nature of the house. To capture an authentic portrayal of the floating set of needles knitting in the burrow, a crew member convinced his mother to be filmed for several hours while she worked on her own knitting project. Also, in the film, Ginny inquires about her missing jumper to her mother, and Molly points out that it is hanging on the cat. The cat in question is actually a cat-shaped decoration on the fireplace mantle, with its tail serving as a makeshift clothes hook. It can be inferred that the jumper had been recently washed and was left to dry on this unique hook-like feature. With a warm welcome for Harry, Mrs. Weasley swiftly transitions into a stormy scolding of her mischievous boys. She is furious that they had taken the car without permission, so she assigns them the task of de-gnoming the garden. Intrigued, Harry decides to join in on this peculiar adventure. Prior to commencing their gnome removal mission, Mrs. Weasley consults a book by the renowned Gilderoy Lockhart, seeking guidance on eradicating household pests. As she admires the book's enchanting cover photo, which winks and moves and praises Lockhart's expertise, it becomes evident that she harbors a secret crush on the author. The de-gnoming process involves scanning their unkempt lawn, plucking out small, leathery, gnome-like creatures from the bushes, and forcefully hurling them into a nearby field, leaving them too disoriented to find their way back. Harry attempts to politely drop a gnome over the fence, but sensing his hesitation, the mischievous creature bites him, prompting him to resort to flinging them with more vigor. This scene was cut from the film adaptation. Following their reprimand, Molly prepares breakfast for them. Shortly thereafter, Arthur Weasley returns home after a long night at work, and he can't help but share his excitement about the peculiar charms he encountered throughout the evening. However, his wife is absolutely furious with him for enchanting their car. Despite his apologies, it's evident that his guilt is overshadowed by his childlike enthusiasm as he eagerly recounts the exhilarating experience of flying in the car. Meanwhile, Ron leads Harry up to his bedroom, passing his younger sister Ginny along the way. It's quite obvious that Ginny has a crush on Harry as she blushes shyly in his presence. Ron's room may be small and adorned with nothing but Quidditch posters, but he is clearly self-conscious and apologetic about it. On the other hand, Harry is captivated by everything he sees, his eyes wide with wonder and excitement. Chapter 4. At Flourish and Blots. Harry remains at the Burrow until his departure for Hogwarts. He relishes his time there, where every item seems to possess a touch of magic. The Weasleys make it evident that they all hold a fondness for Harry. Mr. Weasley is particularly interested in Harry's knowledge of the Muggle world, bombarding him with questions. For instance, Arthur insists that Harry sits beside him during meals, while Molly, who constantly laments the condition of his hand-me-down clothes and his thinness, insists that he consumes extra food. When school supply lists arrive via Owl Post, Ginny becomes unusually clumsy around Harry. Percy, the eldest Weasley sibling still residing at home, is introduced as a studious yet uptight character. The boys, excluding Percy, spend an afternoon honing their Quidditch skills in a hidden field. Ron expresses concern over the financial strain of purchasing school supplies, prompting Harry to feel a pang of guilt due to his inherited wealth. The stark contrast in their financial situations weighs heavily on Harry's mind. A few days later, the Weasleys and Harry are getting ready for their trip to Diagon Alley to purchase their school supplies. They opt for a unique mode of transportation called Floo powder, which involves tossing it into a lit fireplace. This creates a magical pathway that transports the traveler to their desired fireplace. When it's Harry's turn to step into the flames, he accidentally swallows a small amount of hot ash and mutters Diagon Alley. Unfortunately, the Floo powder misinterprets his words and transports him to a dimly lit shop in the infamous Nocturne Alley, adorned with eerie masks and human bones. In the film adaptation, due to mispronouncing Diagon Alley as Diagonally, he mistakenly arrives at Nocturne Alley. To avoid being noticed, Harry finds refuge in a cabinet and unintentionally eavesdrops on a conversation between the shop owner, Mr. Borgin, and Lucius Malfoy, who has just arrived with his son Draco. In the book, Lucius Malfoy was not intended to have long hair initially. Nevertheless, Jason Isaacs, upon being chosen for the role, asked for longer hair to differentiate himself from his on-screen son, Draco. To prevent the hair from obstructing his face, Isaacs had to tilt his head back, enhancing the character's snobbish demeanor by making him appear as if he was looking down his nose at everyone. Actor Jason Isaacs came up with the concept of giving Lucius Malfoy long blonde hair and a walking stick to hide his wand. He became fond of the stick and even attempted to take it off the set at one point, but was apprehended. Draco is expressing his frustration about not being allowed to play Quidditch yet, while Harry Potter is already a member of his Hogwarts house's Quidditch team. In the movie, Harry doesn't encounter the Malfoys in Nocturne Alley. Instead, he explores the shop and experiences a scary-looking hand on a shelf grip him tightly. Lucius discreetly cautions him against showing any signs of disliking Harry, emphasizing that he is highly regarded as a hero in the wizarding community. Subsequently, Lucius discreetly hands over a list of items that the shop owner must sell urgently, just in case the Ministry of Magic decides to search his residence. Meanwhile, Draco idly explores the objects in the shop, expressing his dissatisfaction with Hermione Granger, who consistently outperforms him in all their classes. Lucius, lacking sympathy, sharply retorts that Draco should feel ashamed to be academically surpassed by a non-magical girl. Approximately 15 minutes into the film, viewers catch a fleeting glimpse of the opal necklace within a display case at Borgin and Burke's shop in Nocturne Alley, marking its significance in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. The Malfoys then depart at last, and Harry swiftly exits the store. He notices a sign that reads Borgin and Burke's. Before he can make a decision on his next move, Hagrid, the kind-hearted and massive gamekeeper of Hogwarts, suddenly appears. Hagrid whisks Harry away, cautioning him about Nocturne Alley, and soon they find themselves back in Diagon Alley. The Weasleys and Hermione are there, anxiously waiting for Harry and relieved to see him. It is strictly prohibited for individuals under a certain age to practice magic outside the premises of Hogwarts. It appears that Warner Brothers was not aware of this rule, as depicted in the scene where Hermione Granger repairs Harry's broken glasses in Diagon Alley. In the original books, Mr. Weasley is the one who utilizes the Reparo charm to mend the glasses, as he is an adult and therefore permitted to use his wand at his discretion. Mrs. Weasley rushes over to Harry, showering him with attention, while Mr. Weasley heads straight for Hermione's Muggle parents, bombarding them with questions. The group makes their way to Gringotts Bank, where goblins protect their riches. Mrs. Weasley empties their family vault, while Harry discreetly stashes his inheritance into his bag. As they explore the enchanting shops, they stumble upon various magical stores before finally arriving at Flourish and Blotts, where they purchase their schoolbooks. A crowd of enthusiastic middle-aged witches eagerly await their turn to have their copies of Gilderoy Lockhart's autobiography signed. Lockhart was a brilliant half-blood wizard. During his time at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, he excelled as a Ravenclaw student. However, his true fame came later in life when he became a renowned wizarding celebrity. Lockhart captivated readers with his books about dark creatures and his alleged encounters with them. Jason Isaacs initially tried out for the role of Gilderoy Lockhart, but Chris Columbus suggested that he also audition for Lucius Malfoy. Isaacs was hesitant at first because he felt that the character was too similar to his previous role as Captain Hook in Peter Pan, but he didn't want to be impolite and decline. Despite almost rejecting the offer, Isaacs eventually decided to take on the part after being persuaded by his family members. Lockhart spots Harry and insists on taking a photograph with him for the newspaper. In the novel, Harry and the Weasley family's visit to Flourish and Blott's bookstore takes an unexpected turn. Initially, Harry is forced to take photos with Gilderoy Lockhart, even though he has no interest in doing so. However, in the film, Harry doesn't seem to resist taking photos. He excitedly reveals that he will be the new Defense Against the Dark Arts professor at Hogwarts in the upcoming year. In the film, Lockhart does not yet reveal that he will be working at Hogwarts. Instead, Professor Dumbledore reveals this at the Grand Feast once the students are back at Hogwarts. In the midst of it all, the Malfoys gracefully step into the bookshop, ready to unleash their snide comments towards the Weasleys regarding their modest financial state and the non-magical lineage of the Grangers, who happen to be standing close by. Unexpectedly, Mr. Weasley and Mr. Malfoy find themselves engaged in a heated brawl right in the heart of the bookstore. In the midst of the scuffle, Malfoy snatches one of the Weasleys' used books, and after Hagrid intervenes, callously hurls the book back at Ginny. Mrs. Weasley is utterly appalled by the spectacle. With heavy hearts, the Weasleys and Harry bid farewell to Hermione and her parents before embarking on their journey back to the Burrow. In the film, Lucius and Malfoy do not get physical. Lucius and Mr. Weasley exchange harsh words and they give each other death stares and move on with their lives. Chapter 5: The Whomping Willow. Harry is having the time of his life during the summer at the Burrow. The night before heading off to Hogwarts, the Weasleys and Harry indulge in a scrumptious meal and dessert, light up wizard fireworks, savor a final mug of hot cocoa, and eventually retire to bed. The following morning is utter pandemonium, with 6 kids packing up for the school year at Hogwarts. Mr. Weasley has charmed his Ford Anglia to accommodate all of them along with their belongings and pets comfortably. After a few trips back for forgotten items, they finally make it to King's Cross just in time to catch the Hogwarts Express at platform 9 3/4. Upon their arrival at King's Cross Station, Harry and the Weasleys found themselves facing a series of delays. Despite the setbacks caused by Fred and George forgetting their broomsticks and Ginny leaving her diary behind, they were determined to make it to Hogwarts. The Hogwarts students access the platform by passing through the wall between platforms 9 and 10, and all the Weasleys manage to do so successfully. However, when it's Harry and Ron's turn to pass through, the wall mysteriously seals shut, preventing them from boarding the train. Without missing a beat, they decide to tail the train in Mr. Weasley's flying Ford Anglia. However, they attract the attention of numerous muggles as they rise in the air. John Richardson, the mastermind behind special effects, transformed a genuine 1962 Ford by removing its interior to reduce weight. He then mounted it onto a rotating crane using a unique gimbal head. The filmmakers connected the car to a modified pickup truck, allowing them to maneuver and spin the vehicle, ultimately creating the flying effect we witness on the big screen. The journey to Hogwarts is a peaceful one. The boys soar above the clouds, watching the Hogwarts Express chug along below. After a few hours, night descends, leaving the boys feeling restless and hungry, wondering when they will finally arrive. Suddenly, the Anglia sputters to a stop and starts descending towards the Hogwarts lake. Despite Ron and Harry's efforts to steer it, the car crashes into the Whomping Willow in the Forbidden Forest. The impact not only damages the car, but also breaks Ron's wand. The tree begins to attack the vehicle. Its branches thrash about, hitting the car and the boys. Harry, Ron, and their belongings are ejected before the car speeds off into the Forbidden. 14 Ford Anglias were wrecked to film the part where Harry and Ron smash into the Whomping Willow. They quickly gather their belongings and make a run for Hogwarts just in time to catch a glimpse of the sorting ceremony through the windows. As they ponder the absence of Professor Snape, the Potions Master himself appears and leads them to his office. In this film, Argus Filch is seen waiting outside the Great Hall for Harry and Ron to arrive by car. This scene mirrors a similar event in the book version of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, where Filch catches Harry and Hermione after assisting Hagrid in getting rid of Norbert and delivers the same warning that they are in trouble. The only variation is that Ron is the one in trouble in this movie. The boys recount their tale, but Snape swiftly silences them, thrusting a newspaper article in their faces that declares Muggles have spotted a flying car. He also scolds them for damaging the Whomping Willow, a tree of great value. Harry and Ron realize they're in deep trouble, and Snape seems to relish the idea of punishing them. He departs to fetch Albus Dumbledore, the headmaster, and Minerva McGonagall, the head of Gryffindor House, where Harry and Ron reside. When these two stern figures arrive, Harry and Ron receive further lectures about their actions. Professor Snape endeavors to have them expelled for their unauthorized presence and violation of wizarding laws. Nevertheless, Albus Dumbledore intervenes by promising to send a letter to Harry and Ron's families. Nonetheless, Professor McGonagall issues a cautionary statement and assigns separate detentions to both boys. Additionally, she informs them that Ginny has been sorted into Gryffindor, granting them an abundance of sandwiches but forbidding their attendance at the start of term feast. Snape is visibly disappointed by their seemingly lenient punishment. Professors Dumbledore, Snape, and McGonagall return to the feast, but not before leaving Harry and Ron a plate of sandwiches and a jug of pumpkin juice for their dinner. Harry and Ron finish their meal and make their way back to Gryffindor Tower, passing through the portrait of the Fat Lady. Hermione disapprovingly reminds them of the secret password, Wattlebird. As they enter the common room, they are met with an excited crowd eager to hear about their flying adventure. Percy, Ron's prefect brother, approaches them with a stern expression. Hurrying to their rooms, they are greeted as heroes by their amazed roommates, Seamus Finnegan, Dean Thomas, and Neville Longbottom. Chapter 6, Gilderoy Lockhart. The morning after their car journey, Hermione's mood is sour as she sits with Ron and Harry at breakfast. Despite this, their other friends are clearly impressed. Suddenly, a group of owls swoops in, delivering letters and packages for the day. Errol, the Weasley family's elderly owl, takes a tumble into Hermione's milk jug. Ron rescues him and notices a red, smoking envelope in his beak. It's a howler. As Ron opens it, the booming voice of Mrs. Weasley fills the Great Hall, scolding him for the car mishap, Mr. Weasley's job troubles, and the danger he put himself and Harry in. From now on, Hermione is back to being friendly, feeling that Harry and Ron have learned their lesson. Then, McGonagall distributes timetables and their first class is herbology with the Hufflepuffs. The trio heads to herbology class together, where Gilderoy Lockhart, in his flashy turquoise robes, is confidently giving advice to Professor Sprout on handling the Whomping Willow. Lockhart takes Harry aside, expressing deep regret and understanding, blaming himself for the car incident. It becomes clear that Lockhart believes Harry has been seeking fame recklessly ever since their encounter at the bookstore. Harry is shocked and hurt, but he composes himself and joins his classmates in the greenhouse. In the film, Lockhart isn't featured talking to Professor Sprout. In the magical greenhouse, Professor Sprout gathers the students for an intriguing lesson on repotting seedling mandrakes. They are known for their healing properties when fully grown. These little plants, with their pale green color and mottled appearance, possess a remarkable power. They can restore transfigured individuals back to their original form. Hermione, always the knowledgeable one, enlightens her friends about the mandrake's incredible restorative abilities. However, there's a catch. Their cries are fatally loud. To protect themselves, the entire class dons earmuffs before handling these peculiar babies with leaves sprouting from their heads. The next class is Transfiguration, where Ron encounters difficulties due to his damaged wand, despite attempting to mend it with sellotape. Unfortunately, the wand emits a putrid cloud of smoke that fills the air. In the film, Ron turns his rat into a goblet, but it malfunctions. Instead, his goblet has a hairy tail. This scene takes place after the warning of the Chamber of Secrets that has been opened. During the class, McGonagall explains the history of Hogwarts and the evil acts of Salazar Slytherin. On the way to their next class, Harry finds himself approached by a young Gryffindor first year named Colin Creevey. Armed with his camera, Colin timidly requests a signed picture from Harry as proof of their encounter. He goes on to gush about Harry's incredible history, Hogwarts and the wonders of magic, all the while embarrassing poor Harry. To add insult to injury, Draco Malfoy happens to pass by and loudly announces that Harry is giving away signed photos. Ron, ever the loyal friend, steps in to defend Harry, but Malfoy cruelly remarks that one of those signed photos would be worth more than Ron's entire house. Just as tensions rise and a fight seems imminent, Professor Lockhart appears, overhearing the commotion. With his usual flair, he suggests that both he and Harry pose for a signed photo for Colin. Hugh Grant had initially been chosen to play the role of Gilderoy Lockhart, but unfortunately had to step back at the 11th hour due to conflicting schedules with the film 2 weeks' notice. Lockhart mentioned that he did not defeat the Bandon Banshee by simply smiling at him. Banshees are known as Irish spirits that are exclusively female. The text specifically referred to the Banshee as her. Harry, Ron, and Hermione go to their first session with Lockhart, the newly appointed Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Just as they are about to begin the task, a friendly Hufflepuff student named Justin Finch Fletchley introduces himself to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Justin shares an interesting tidbit about his background, revealing that he almost attended Eton, a prestigious Muggle school. This implies that he is Muggle-born, as Eton is not a wizarding institution. However, after showing his parents Lockhart's books and persuading them of the usefulness of wizards, he successfully convinced them to send him to Hogwarts. Lockhart's teaching methods prove to be a complete disaster. He surprises the students with a quiz based on his personal life, favorite things, and accomplishments from his books. The quiz is extensive, with over 50 questions. The class is then tasked with handling mischievous pixies that Lockhart accidentally releases. Unable to control them, Lockhart hurriedly exits the room, leaving Ron, Harry, and Hermione to deal with the chaos. Chapter 7: Mudbloods and Murmurs. Time flies at Hogwarts without much excitement. Harry steers clear of Gilderoy Lockhart and Colin Creevey whenever possible, while Ron's wand continues to cause chaos with spells. One early Saturday morning, Harry is woken up by Oliver Wood, the Gryffindor Quidditch team captain, for a dawn practice session. Harry quickly gets dressed and heads to the locker room to meet the team, but on the way he bumps into Colin. Colin eagerly asks Harry to explain the rules of Quidditch, which Harry does. In a nutshell, the game involves 7 players on broomsticks, with the Seeker, Harry, needing to catch the Golden Snitch to end the game. 2 bludgers try to knock players off their brooms while the beaters, Fred and George Weasley, work to keep them at bay. The chasers, Alicia Spinett, Angelina Johnson, and Katie Bell, aim to throw the quaffle through the goalpost past the keeper, Oliver Wood, making it somewhat similar to water polo. At last, they emerge from the confines of the room, stepping into the open air to begin their practice. Shortly after commencing their actual practice, the Slytherin Quidditch team, equipped with brand new Nimbus 2001 broomsticks, arrives, leading to a dispute over field time. Amidst the confrontation, it is revealed that Malfoy has assumed the role of the new Slytherin Seeker and is responsible for procuring the team's new brooms. Hermione asserts that their team members earned their position solely based on their natural abilities without resorting to any form of bribery. In response, Malfoy hurls a derogatory term, mudblood, at Hermione, provoking an angry reaction from the Gryffindor team. Ron, in an attempt to curse Malfoy, inadvertently suffers the consequences of his damaged wand, resulting in him being swiftly taken to Hagrid's cabin as he begins to expel slugs. In an interview with Rupert Grint, it was disclosed that the slugs he regurgitated were artificial slugs containing various flavors of slime. He openly acknowledged that these slugs were surprisingly delicious. Ron and Hagrid educate Harry on the derogatory term mudblood used for muggleborns like Hermione. They also discuss the superiority complex of pure-blood wizards such as the Malfoys. Upon their return to the castle, Professor McGonagall assigns detentions to Harry and Ron. Harry assists Lockhart with responding to fan mail, while Ron is tasked with polishing the school's awards. While serving his detention, Harry hears a mysterious voice that Lockhart is unable to perceive. Chapter 8: The Death Day Party. October has arrived, and with it, the rain. Despite the weather, Quidditch practice goes on as usual. One evening, as Harry makes his way through the castle corridors, he comes across nearly headless Nick, the Gryffindor ghost who was feeling down. Nick reveals that he was rejected from the headless hunt because his head can't fully come off. Their conversation is cut short when Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, appears. Nick warns Harry to leave before they get caught for tracking mud. Mrs. Norris was born before 1984 and was adopted as the beloved pet cat by Argus Filch, the caretaker of Hogwarts School. She has developed an exceptionally strong connection with her owner and promptly notifies him of any students who are misbehaving. As a result, both Mrs. Norris and Filch are despised by the majority of Hogwarts students, and many students aspire to kick her. However, Filch catches Harry and starts to write a punishment complaint. Suddenly, there's a loud crash and Filch rushes out. Harry takes a peek at an open envelope on the desk and discovers a mail-order course called Quick Spell for wizards who aren't completely magical. He quickly puts it back before Filch returns, jokingly telling Mrs. Norris that Peeves will be in trouble for the cabinet incident. Filch is about to scold Harry when he notices the Quick Spell envelope near him, asking anxiously if he read it. Harry denies it, and Filch, looking worried, lets him go. Filch stands as the sole inhabitant at Hogwarts who abstains from showcasing any magical abilities. Within the literary works, it is unveiled that he is classified as a squib, signifying his status as a non-magical offspring born to parents with magical powers. Outside, Nick reveals that he had instructed Peeves to create a diversion, and Harry expresses his gratitude. He asks if there's anything he can do to assist with the rejection from the Headless Hunt. Nick responds with sheer delight, suggesting that Harry attends his 500th Death Day party on Halloween. He adds that during the event, Harry can impress the other headless ghosts by mentioning how terrifying and awe-inspiring the students find Nick. Harry eagerly agrees and extends the invitation to Ron and Hermione. On Halloween, the trio ventures into the dungeons, where they are greeted by eerie, discordant music and the stench of decaying food. They catch glimpses of countless translucent figures. Nick warmly welcomes them, and they explore the surroundings, observing the ghosts as they dance and pass through the table of putrefying food, attempting to taste it. Hermione spots Moaning Myrtle, a ghost from the girls' bathroom, and swiftly guides her friends away, hoping to avoid engaging in conversation with her. Shirley Henderson, known for her role as Moaning Myrtle, holds the distinction of being the most senior actress at the age of 37 to play a student at Hogwarts. As Peeves approaches, he mentions overhearing the three talking about Myrtle and calls her over. Hermione quickly jumps in, saying they were actually complimenting how nice she looked that night. However, Myrtle insists they were mocking her and lists all the negative attributes they might have teased her about: fat, ugly, moping. Peeves adds that she forgot Pimply, causing Myrtle to run away in tears. Just then, nearly headless Nick arrives and introduces them to the head of the Headless Hunt. The three students are eager to leave and quickly make their way out during Nick's introduction. As they rush through the passageway, Harry hears a chilling voice whispering about murder. He leads his friends towards the sound, and they find themselves in a deserted corridor with a message scrawled on the wall: "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware." Above them, a petrified cat Mrs. Norris hangs from the ceiling. Suddenly, the halls fill with people leaving the feast, and Draco Malfoy taunts them, saying they'll be next because they are mudbloods. In the film, the Death Day party of nearly headless Nick is sadly absent, only existing in concept art. As a result, in the film, on his way back from enduring a lengthy detention with Gilderoy Lockhart, Harry stumbles upon the petrified Mrs. Norris instead of finding her after the Death Day party. Chapter 9, The Writing on the Wall. Filch catches sight of Mrs. Norris suspended from the ceiling and immediately directs his anger towards Harry, accusing him of being responsible for the cat's demise. Just as tensions rise, Dumbledore appears and swiftly transports Harry, Ron, Hermione, Filch, and Mrs. Norris to Lockhart's nearby office, which the eager Lockhart had offered. The room is adorned with numerous conceited portraits of Lockhart himself, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere. Dumbledore examines the petrified cat, while Professor McGonagall frets silently and Snape sneers disdainfully. Lockhart attempts to reassure everyone with his supposed expertise in reversing curses, causing Filch to break down in tears. Dumbledore clarifies that the cat is not dead, but merely petrified, and emphasizes that second-year students couldn't have possibly performed such a powerful dark spell. He also mentions that the school will soon have enough mature mandrakes to create a restorative potion, a task that Lockhart eagerly volunteers for. However, Filch remains unconvinced and insists that Harry attacked his cat due to knowing Filch's squib status. Snape interrupts, claiming that the three students were in a suspicious location during the Halloween feast. Ron, Harry, and Hermione explain their attendance at the Death Day party, but Snape questions why they didn't immediately join the feast afterwards. Reluctant to reveal the existence of the eerie, disembodied voice, Harry simply states that they were tired and wanted to go to bed. Snape remains skeptical and suggests removing Harry from the Quidditch team until he tells the truth. However, McGonagall and Dumbledore swiftly dismiss this idea. The three students make their way to their dormitories, with Ron explaining the concept of a squib to Harry, who contemplates the mysterious nature of the Chamber of Secrets. In the movie, the teacher's questioning of Harry, Ron, and Hermione took a different turn due to the incident happening during Harry's detention with Gilderoy Lockhart, rather than on their way back from nearly headless Nick's Death Day party. During his conversation with Dumbledore, Snape hinted that he considered Harry a suspect because he was absent during dinner. This suspicion arose because Lockhart unintentionally made Harry stay behind for detention longer than intended. Hermione then stepped in to explain that they were absent because they noticed Harry's absence and went looking for him. She was about to mention that Harry claimed to have heard a strange voice before hesitating, prompting Harry to lie and say that he had told her he wasn't hungry. Hermione confidently asserts in the movie that the inscription on the wall is etched in blood. However, the book clarifies that the message is merely composed using red paint. Filch maintains a vigilant eye on the crime scene, while Justin Finch-Fletchley flees from Harry, seemingly convinced that Harry is the culprit behind the crime. Meanwhile, Ginny Weasley appears to be terrified of everything around her. In the History of Magic class, Professor Binns, a small, elderly, and dull ghost who teaches the subject, continues to drone on. However, Hermione interrupts by raising her hand and persuading him to delve into the history of the Chamber of Secrets. As the story unfolds, it turns out that the founders of Hogwarts created the school as a nurturing environment for talented young witches and wizards. Everything was going well until Salazar Slytherin caused a rift by expressing his desire to exclude Muggle-born wizards from the institution. Salazar Slytherin's first name is derived from the former Portuguese dictator Antonio de Oliveira Salazar. J.K. Rowling penned a portion of the initial Harry Potter novel during her time in Porto, Portugal. Eventually, Slytherin departed from the school, but not before constructing a hidden Chamber of Secrets. Within this chamber lurked a monstrous creature that would eliminate all non-pureblood wizards from Hogwarts. Slytherin claimed that only his heir would possess the power to control it. The students bombard Binns with a barrage of questions until he becomes irritated, dismisses it all as folklore, and resumes the original lesson plan. Professor Binns, not Professor McGonagall, delves into the origins of the Chamber of Secrets in the book. Cuthbert Binns is the history of magic professor in the series, known for his ability to turn an otherwise intriguing topic into a dull one. Additionally, he holds the distinction of being the sole Hogwarts teacher who is a ghost. Due to his perceived lack of importance in the films, his limited significant contributions to the plot were assigned to different characters. Harry is filled with concern due to this newfound knowledge. Last year, when the Sorting Hat placed him in Gryffindor instead of Slytherin, it had assured him that Slytherin would bring him greatness. However, Harry had strongly desired not to be in Slytherin. Now, he worries about any potential connection he may have with Salazar Slytherin, despite his own hopes and wishes. Unfortunately, it seems that many students in the school believe he is indeed connected to Slytherin. In the film, the rest of the students do not suspect Harry of being a descendant of Slytherin until he speaks Parseltongue to a snake. As Harry, Ron, and Hermione make their way through the corridor, they come across mysterious writing on the wall. They wonder about the source of the water from the night of the attack, and notice a line of spiders hastily scurrying away through a window. Intrigued, they decide to investigate Myrtle's bathroom for any possible clues. Myrtle, as always, is in a gloomy state, and the bathroom itself exudes a rather depressing atmosphere. After a brief search, they leave the bathroom only to encounter Percy Weasley, who scolds them harshly for being in a girl's bathroom and for being in a suspicious location. This exchange leaves both Ron and Harry feeling upset. In the darkness of the night, Harry, Ron, and Hermione engage in a lively discussion, thinking of the possibility of Malfoy being the heir of Slytherin. Hermione proposes an intriguing plan to uncover the truth, brewing a polyjuice potion and transforming themselves into Slytherins. This would grant them access to Malfoy's secrets as they discreetly listen in on conversations within the Slytherin common room. Initially, Ron and Harry express doubt, but Hermione's determination shines through. She suggests obtaining a note from a teacher, allowing her to explore the restricted section in the library, where the recipe for the potion awaits their discovery. Chapter 10. The Rogue Bludger. Following the incident with the mischievous pixies, Lockhart finds solace in his dark arts class by immersing himself in role-playing. As the class comes to an end, Hermione approaches Lockhart with a request. She seeks permission to access a book called Moster Potente Potions from the restricted section of the library, hoping to gain a deeper understanding of the strategies outlined in one of Lockhart's books. Lockhart is genuinely flattered by Hermione's interest in his work, and he gladly signs the slip. Excitedly, Harry, Hermione, and Ron rush to the library, where they are granted access to the coveted book. As they delve into its pages, they discover the intricate and arduous steps involved in creating and using the polyjuice potion. However, in the film adaptation, this entire scene was left out, and in the book was conveniently placed in the regular section of the library. Hermione cautions them that it will take a month to brew, provided they acquire all the necessary ingredients, two of which are only available in Snape's personal supplies. By the end, Hermione remains determined to attempt its creation, and she manages to convince the boys to join her in this daring endeavor. Since Moaning Myrtle's bathroom is rarely visited, the trio decides it is the ideal location to brew the potion discreetly. Hermione takes charge of preparing the ingredients they have gathered. Shirley Henderson, known for her role as Moaning Myrtle, the ghost who incessantly weeps in the girls' lavatory, also portrayed Jude in Bridget Jones's Diary. In this film, she is depicted as spending a significant amount of time in the ladies' room, shedding tears over her boyfriend instead of focusing on her responsibilities. The Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Slytherin is about to begin, and as the Gryffindor team gathers for their pep talk, Oliver Wood instills confidence in his players. He reminds them that although the Slytherins may have superior brooms, it is the Gryffindors who possess the true talent and skill. With determination in his voice, Oliver turns to Harry and urges him to catch the snitch at any cost. The movie showcases the match happening under the bright sunlight, while the book predominantly features scenes set in rainy weather. In the movie, a wild bludger smashes into Oliver Wood's broom, causing it to shatter just as Wood tries to alert Harry to be careful. Surprisingly, the book doesn't even touch upon the bludger damaging Wood's broom. As the game starts, Harry takes to the air, his eyes scanning the field for the one and only snitch. Suddenly, a bludger hurtles towards him, relentlessly pursuing him even after being deflected by Fred and George. The Gryffindor beaters valiantly protect Harry, but the Slytherins manage to score goal after goal. The spectators quickly realize that this particular bludger has been tampered with, as it deviates from its usual behavior of attacking all players indiscriminately. In the film adaptation, Hermione takes matters into her own hands and uses the powerful spell Finite Incantatem to obliterate the troublesome bludger after the match, unintentionally causing some damage to Hogwarts property. During a timeout, Harry makes a bold request to Fred and George. He asks them to rejoin the game, allowing him to face the rogue bludger alone while he continues his search for the snitch. Malfoy, the Slytherin Seeker, mocks Harry for his agile dodges, unaware that the snitch is right beside Harry's face. However, in the film, Draco spots the snitch right after Harry does. It happens right after he narrowly avoids being struck by a bludger. This leads to an exhilarating chase between the two of them as they both desperately try to catch the snitch. In the film, their pursuit takes them through the Quidditch stands. Filch is shown backing Slytherin in the movie, standing proudly among the Slytherin fans, while in the books, his allegiance remains a mystery. Lucius Malfoy can be spotted in the crowd watching the Gryffindor-Slytherin Quidditch match in the movie, even though this detail is not included in the book. In a moment of quick thinking, Harry pauses, enduring a blow from the bludger, and swiftly dives towards Malfoy. With determination in his eyes, he snatches the snitch and plummets from the sky, victorious. Harry emerges victorious in the game, but his triumph is short-lived as he lands with a painful thud. To his surprise, Lockhart rushes to his aid, attempting to mend his broken arm. However, Lockhart's incompetence leads to a disastrous mistake, resulting in Harry's arm being completely devoid of bones. During the movie, Malfoy skillfully avoids the bludger, but he accidentally tilts his broom too far down, resulting in the tip hitting a beam. This causes him to be flung off his broom and land on the grass, where he ends up doing an unintentional full split. Despite his painful predicament, he continues to groan in agony at the hospital wing until Madame Pomfrey scolds him for making a scene. Hagrid is there when Lockhart tries to fix Harry's arm, unlike in the book. In both the book and the film, Slytherin dominated the match by scoring goals with the quaffle, but the final scores varied. The book recorded a score of 60, 0, while the film showed a score of 90, 30. Eventually, Gryffindor earned 150 points and emerged victorious. In excruciating pain, Harry is swiftly transported to the hospital wing, where he is informed that his arm will have to undergo a lengthy and agonizing process of regrowth. In the film adaptation, the entire team, along with Ron and Hermione, accompanies Harry. Instead of asking them to leave the hospital wing, Madame Pomfrey instructs them to make way for her. Madame Pomfrey exhibited a strong sense of ownership over the patients under her care within the hospital wing, becoming somewhat agitated by their visitors. She often emphasized the importance of rest for the patients and promptly requested that visitors vacate the premises. Her expertise in healing magic allowed her to address certain ailments with remarkable speed. Madame Pomfrey made a brief appearance in the background of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, portrayed by an extra. Gemma Jones then took on the role and continued to portray the character throughout the rest of the franchise. As the night wears on, Harry finds himself confined to the hospital wing, awaiting the miraculous regeneration of his arm. It is during this time that an unexpected visitor pays him a visit. Dobby, the mischievous house elf, appears before Harry and reveals his involvement in the recent events. He confesses to causing the bludger to chase after him, as well as preventing him from entering Platform 9 3/4, in the hope that Harry would not arrive at Hogwarts. Dobby fears for Harry's safety, believing that his life is in grave danger due to the reopening of the Chamber of Secrets, but then punished himself for revealing this information. Intrigued by this revelation, Harry eagerly seeks more information from Dobby. However, the determined house elf remains steadfast in his decision to divulge no further details. Before long, the sound of approaching footsteps echoes through the corridor, causing Dobby to vanish into thin air. Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, and Madame Pomfrey enter the room, carrying a motionless figure that Harry recognizes as Colin Creevey, petrified with his camera still in hand. With a solemn expression, Dumbledore confirms what Dobby had previously disclosed. The Chamber of Secrets has indeed been reopened. Chapter 11, The Dueling Club. After Harry goes to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom the following morning and shares the information he obtained from Dobby, Hermione devises a plan for Harry and Ron to cause a distraction in potions so she can procure the remaining ingredients for the Polyjuice potion from Snape's personal supplies. When McGonagall approaches with a registration sheet for students staying at the school over Christmas, Harry, Ron, and Hermione decide to sign up upon learning that Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle have done so, as it presents an ideal opportunity to drink the Polyjuice potion. By creating a diversion in potions class through Harry's act of throwing a filibuster firework into Goyle's cauldron, Hermione is able to successfully obtain the ingredients without any issues, although Snape remains suspicious of Harry's involvement in the incident upon discovering the firework. Harry later enrolls in a dueling club, which, much to his dismay, is instructed by his least favourite teachers, Lockhart and Snape. In the first session, during a practice duel, Draco Malfoy summons a snake to attack Harry. The filmmakers have made a slight change in the movie adaptation of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. They decided to omit the scene where Harry, Ron, and Hermione cause a ruckus in potions class to steal ingredients from Professor Snape. However, this alteration caused a small continuity error. In the film, Snape accuses Harry of brewing Polyjuice Potion by stealing its ingredients again, even though we never see Harry doing it. Lockhart attempts to banish the creature, but instead, he inadvertently releases it among the students. Harry notices the snake moving towards a Hufflepuff student named Justin Finch-Fletchley and instinctively commands it to stop. Much to his surprise, the snake obeys. However, Justin and the others do not react positively. They only witness Harry speaking Parseltongue, the language of snakes, which they cannot comprehend, leading them to believe that he is encouraging the snake. In the film, Harry and Draco are the sole participants in the duel, whereas in the book, there are other classmates from their year joining in the action, including Hermione, Millicent Bulstrode, Ron, Seamus, Neville, and Justin Finch-Fletchley. In the book, Longbottom causes devastation with the simplest spells. Snape uttered a line that was later altered to Weasley's wand, causes devastation with the simplest spells. After Professor Lockhart selected Ron and Harry to showcase the disarming charm. In the original version, Snape referred to Neville Longbottom instead. Similarly, the film also made a change by replacing the line, "We'll be sending what's left of Finch-Fletchley up to the hospital wing in a matchbox," with "We'll be sending what's left of Potter up to the hospital wing in a matchbox." This modification was necessary as Justin Finch-Fletchley didn't engage in a duel during that particular scene. Rictus Emperor was employed as a stunning spell, causing Malfoy to execute an impressive backflip. However, in the book, Rictus Emperor was described as inducing an uncontrollable tickling sensation in its target. Interestingly, the film omitted the usage of Tarantallegra, a jinx that compels individuals to dance wildly and involuntarily. Furthermore, it was Malfoy himself who decided to attack with a Serpensortia spell, whereas in the book, Snape was the one who planted that idea in his mind. Surprisingly, the book did not mention the spell Evertestatum, but it made an appearance in the film. Harry discovers that Parseltongue is a rare ability associated with Salazar Slytherin, making him the prime suspect among students for being Slytherin's heir. Hermione even suggests that Harry might be a descendant of Slytherin due to the connection. Harry's ability to speak Parseltongue is showcased in the film. However, there is a slight difference between the book and the film adaptation. In the book, the reader is instantly aware of what Harry says when he speaks Parseltongue, just like when he converses with the snake at the zoo in the movie version of Philosopher's Stone. The film portrays it as hissing sounds until Harry clarifies his words to Ron and Hermione. Although the translations of other instances of Parseltongue in the film are not explicitly provided, they align with the translations in the book. During a cancelled herbology lesson, Harry speaks with Hagrid, who discloses that the school's roosters are being mysteriously killed. Shortly after parting ways with Hagrid, Harry encounters a petrified Justin Finch-Fletchley and nearly headless Nick, who is also petrified. Peeves spreads the news throughout the school, and a Hufflepuff student named Ernie Macmillan accuses Harry of being caught in the act. Chapter 12: The Polyjuice Potion. Harry is escorted to Dumbledore's office for the first time, where he witnesses the extraordinary sight of Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix, bursting into flames and then being reborn from its own ashes. The animatronic phoenix that was used to represent Fawkes in the film appeared so realistic to the cast, to the point where Richard Harris, who played Professor Albus Dumbledore, mistook it for a genuine living bird upon first glance. Fawkes, the phoenix belonging to Professor Dumbledore, was given the name of Guy Fawkes, who was apprehended in 1605 for his failed plot to detonate the House of Lords in London. Presently, an effigy of him is set ablaze every year on Guy Fawkes Night, which falls on November 5th. Dumbledore's office can be accessed using the password Sherbet Lemon. In the initial book, Dumbledore confesses his affection for lemon drops, a delightful treat enjoyed by muggles. In the book, Harry bravely wears the sorting hat on his head as he questions whether it placed him in the correct house. However, in the film, he stands before the hat, seeking answers. Dumbledore reassures Harry that he does not suspect him of being responsible for the attacks, a belief further supported by Hagrid's testimony. However, a significant portion of the school now firmly believes that Harry is Slytherin's heir. As Christmas approaches, Harry receives a range of gifts including a toothpick, fudge in a tin, a book on flying with the cannons, a new quill, a jumper, and plum cake. With the Polyjuice Potion prepared and Hermione managing to acquire spare Slytherin robes, they plan to transform into Crabbe and Goyle. To incapacitate the real Crabbe and Goyle, they give them chocolate cakes laced with sleeping pills, causing them to fall asleep. Harry and Ron collect their hairs and even borrow their shoes due to the size difference. However, Hermione mistakenly uses her cat's hair instead of Millicent Bulstrode's, resulting in her transforming into a hybrid of a cat and a human. As a consequence, Hermione is confined to the hospital wing for several weeks. In the book, the Polyjuice Potion alters its colors with each strand of hair added, creating a visually captivating transformation. However, in the film adaptation, this magical effect is omitted, leaving the potion's appearance unchanged throughout the brewing process. During the Christmas feast in the Great Hall, Hermione casually mentions that she managed to remove Millicent Bulstrode's hair from her robes. However, the book tells a different story, portraying Hermione and Millicent in the dueling club where Millicent has Hermione in a headlock. It is in this intense moment that Hermione discovers black hair clinging to her robes. In the movie, there's a thrilling scene where Harry and Ron cleverly hide Crabbe and Goyle in a broom cupboard. However, this particular scene didn't make it to the final cut of the movie, but it can still be found in the deleted scenes section. As a result of this omission, when Harry and Ron dash past Crabbe and Goyle, they are left bewildered and disoriented. Actors Jamie Waylett and Josh Herdman accidentally injured themselves while shooting the scene where Crabbe and Goyle munch on the levitating cupcakes. They ended up cutting their mouths on the hooks that were used to secure the cupcakes to the fishing line. The potion in the book is found in one of the stalls, where the trio each drinks from their own glass in separate stalls. However, in the film, the potion is located in one of the sinks, while Ron and Hermione run to cubicles feeling sick, a detail not mentioned in the book. Harry stays at the sink and observes his transformation. In the book, Harry experiences a tumultuous sensation within him, as if a swarm of live snakes had just slithered down his throat. He doubles over in pain, and a scorching heat rapidly spreads from his stomach to the very tips of his fingers and toes. Gasping for breath, he collapses onto all fours, only to be overwhelmed by a dreadful sensation of melting, as if his entire body were bubbling like hot wax. As he watches in disbelief, his hands begin to transform before his eyes, with fingers thickening and nails broadening, while his knuckles bulge like bolts. The stretching of his shoulders becomes excruciating, and a tingling sensation on his forehead signals the creeping descent of hair towards his eyebrows. His robes tear apart as his chest expands, resembling a barrel bursting its hoops. And to add to his torment, his feet are trapped in shoes 4 sizes too small. In the film, however, Harry witnesses a different transformation. He observes his hands bubbling and then gazes into the mirror above the sink, only to witness his face undergo a similar bubbling effect, eventually morphing into Goyle's face. The Polyjuice Potion has varying effects between the book and the film adaptations. In the movies, Harry and Ron's voices remain the same when they transform into Crabbe and Goyle, leading them to mimic their voices instead. This alteration was likely made to prevent audience confusion due to the visual transformation that typically accompanies the potion's use in both Deathly Hallows films. In the film adaptation of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, there is a continuity error with Barty Crouch Jr.'s usage of the Polyjuice Potion. When he transforms into Moody, his voice does change, which contradicts the rules established for the potion. However, we can view this as an exception since his true identity was concealed until the end of the film. Harry's eyesight alters in the book when he removes his glasses after consuming the Polyjuice Potion. However, in the movie, his vision remains the same, and he only removes his glasses when Draco, disguised as Goyle, confronts him about wearing them. In the film adaptation of the first half of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, there's a possibility of a small continuity error arising. This occurs when Hermione, Ron, and their companions consume the potion to assume Harry's appearance, and Hermione casually mentions that Harry's eyesight is quite poor. Upon being escorted by Draco to the Slytherin common room, Harry and Ron question an unsuspecting Malfoy and learn that despite his desires, Draco is not the heir of Slytherin. In the movie, Ron and Harry sport Slytherin robes borrowed from Crabbe and Goyle. However, in the books, Hermione swipes larger robes from the laundry since all the robes are simply plain black without any house colours. Ron sought out Penelope Clearwater for directions to the Slytherin common room, but she refused to assist him since she belonged to Ravenclaw House. This detail was left out of the movie adaptation. In the Slytherin common room scene, the film leaves out some key details from the book. For example, Draco doesn't show Goyle, Harry, and Crabbe Ron the Daily Prophet article about Arthur Weasley's inquiry at the Ministry of Magic. Additionally, Draco doesn't bring up Dumbledore's love for Muggleborns, although it's clear that Dumbledore still cared for them. The rude mimicking act of Colin Creevey wanting Harry's autograph is also missing. Harry and Ron are informed by Malfoy that 50 years ago, a Muggle-born student perished when the chamber was last opened, leading to the expulsion of the culprit. Additionally, Malfoy reveals details about his father's hidden collection of illegal artifacts. Tom Felton improvised his line when Draco caught Harry disguised as Goyle, saying, "I didn't know you could read." Although Crabbe and Goyle appear more frequently in this film compared to their appearances in other movies, they do not have any spoken lines. This is because their voices were replaced by Daniel Radcliffe and Rupert Grint during the Polyjuice Potion scene. Azkaban Prison isn't mentioned in this scene because Harry doesn't ask Draco about the Chamber of Secrets incident. Instead, Hagrid is the first to mention Azkaban when Dumbledore and Cornelius Fudge visit Hagrid's hut. Draco's comment about the Weasleys being an embarrassment to the wizarding world makes Ron clench his fists in the film, while in the book, his face is twisted with anger. In the book, Ron and Harry notice they're changing back to normal when Ron's hair turns red and his nose elongates, prompting them to flee. However, in the movie, Ron spots Harry's scar reappearing, and Harry sees Ron's hair turning red again, leading to a whispered exchange of scar and hair. Additionally, a scene is added where Draco discovers a mysterious package, which he later unwraps to reveal a silver object, a deviation from the original book plot. Chapter 13, The Very Secret Diary. Weeks later, Ron and Harry eavesdrop on Argus Filch as he grumbles about his excessive workload and decides to leave. They make their way to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom only to discover that it is flooded. Myrtle, a melancholic ghost, reveals that she caused the flooding because someone had flushed a diary down the toilet, which ended up on her. Harry picks up the diary and realizes that it once belonged to someone named T.M. Riddle, but it is completely empty. Ron recalls from his detention that Riddle had received an award for exceptional service to the school 50 years ago, as he had another slug attack on the trophy. Hermione deduces that since this aligns with the last time the Chamber of Secrets was opened, Tom Riddle might have been rewarded for capturing the culprit responsible for the attacks at that time. Despite all attempts to extract information from the diary failing, Harry feels an inexplicable urge to keep it. On Valentine's Day, Ron and Harry are disheartened to discover that Lockhart has deployed dwarves dressed as cupids throughout the school to distribute and deliver Valentine's Day cards, believing it will boost morale due to his belief that he single-handedly put an end to the attacks. Harry receives a singing Valentine from a cupid dwarf, but in his attempt to avoid the dwarf, he trips and spills ink all over his bag. Ginny becomes alarmed when she sees the diary covered in ink. In the original script, they left out the part where Hermione receives a get well soon card from none other than Gilderoy Lockhart. Professor Lockhart's Valentine's Day breakfast in the Great Hall didn't make the cut either. Meanwhile, Draco Malfoy tries to steal the diary while Harry is picking up his belongings, but Harry retaliates by stunning him. Percy Weasley, who was present during the incident, scolds Harry for his actions. Later, Harry discovers that despite the ink spill, the diary remains unstained. He decides to write in the diary and is surprised when Riddle responds. Riddle reveals that he was the one who caught the culprit responsible for opening the Chamber of Secrets in the past and offers to show Harry what happened. Harry agrees and is transported back to the 13th of June 1943, where he witnesses the school's former headmaster, Armando Dippet, informing Riddle that the school will be closed due to the death of a Muggle-born girl. The film doesn't show the moment when Harry receives his Valentine and Draco Malfoy attempts to snatch Tom Riddle's diary. Harry disarms Malfoy, but Percy scolds him for using magic in the corridors. Furthermore, when Harry is transported back in time through the diary in the book, he finds himself in the headmaster's office where Professor Dippet is engrossed in a letter from Tom Riddle. On the other hand, in the film, Harry enters a different location below the grand staircase, where Tom Riddle is standing. It is here that a younger Dumbledore appears, engaging in a pivotal conversation with the young Riddle. Riddle is filled with apprehension at the thought of being sent back to the Muggle orphanage where he grew up and developed a strong dislike for. Dippet assumes that Riddle is also Muggle-born, but Riddle corrects him by revealing that he is actually half-blood. He explains that his witch mother passed away and he was left at the orphanage, but before she died, she requested that his first name be Tom, after his Muggle father, and his middle name be Marvolo, after his wizard grandfather. After being dismissed by Dippet and a much younger Dumbledore, Harry decides to follow Riddle into the dungeons. There, Riddle catches a younger version of Hagrid playing with a young acromantula in a cupboard. Riddle accuses Hagrid of hiding the creature responsible for the death of the Muggle-born girl in question and reports him to Dippet. Despite Hagrid's protests that his acromantula, whom he has named Aragog, has never harmed anyone, Riddle remains convinced of Hagrid's guilt. Witnessing this, Harry now believes that Hagrid was the one who opened the chamber 50 years ago and is responsible for the current events. In the book, the ink is scarlet, but in the film, the ink takes on a deep black hue. The difference in color adds a certain mystique to the story, capturing the essence of Tom Riddle's dark intentions. Similarly, in the book, Tom Riddle's diary only reveals his first and middle names as initials, leaving an air of secrecy around his true identity. However, in the film adaptation, his full first and last names are boldly displayed on the diary, emphasizing the significance of his character. These subtle differences between the book and the film adaptation add a unique flavor to the story, allowing readers and viewers to experience the magical world of Harry Potter in different ways. In the movie adaptation, there is an additional scene where Harry and Tom Riddle stumble upon Myrtle's lifeless body, unbeknownst to Harry. She is wrapped in a sheet with her right arm protruding and being carried away by a group of unidentified wizards. This particular event was not depicted in the original book. Furthermore, in the book, it is Armando Dippet who converses with Tom Riddle about the closure of Hogwarts. However, in the film, Dumbledore takes on this role, while Dippet merely makes a brief appearance before turning his back without uttering a word to Tom. After Tom's encounter with Dippet in the book, he encounters Dumbledore, who questions him about his late-night wanderings and advises him to return to bed due to the current unsafe conditions in the corridors. Lastly, during Harry's journey into the memory within the diary, he witnesses Tom Riddle interacting with Rubeus Hagrid. In the book, Tom addresses him as Rubeus, but in the film, he refers to him as Hagrid, just like everyone else. Chapter 14, Cornelius Fudge. Harry, Ron, and Hermione make a collective decision to refrain from asking Hagrid about the ongoing situation in the hopes that the attacks would come to an end. Indeed, nearly 4 months have passed since the incident involving Justin and nearly headless Nick, and the mysterious voice has fallen silent, indicating a stop in attacks. Nevertheless, peculiar occurrences persist. Harry discovers his dormitory in disarray one day, prompting Ron to suspect that someone has been searching for something. Eventually, Harry realizes that Tom Riddle's diary is missing. This development leaves them perplexed, as only a Gryffindor student or a member of the staff would possess the knowledge of the dormitory's password. The following day, the highly anticipated Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Hufflepuff is called off due to another attack, during which Harry once again hears the ominous voice. Professor McGonagall summons Harry and Ron personally, escorting them to the hospital wing where they find Hermione petrified. She has been discovered near the library alongside a Ravenclaw prefect, clutching a small circular mirror. This incident serves as evidence that Harry could not be the heir of Slytherin, as he would never harm one of his friends. In the book, McGonagall cancels the Gryffindor-Hufflepuff Quidditch match using a large megaphone on the field, much to Oliver Wood and the audience's dismay. However, in the film, she simply informs the Gryffindor team as they are heading out, and Oliver is less aggressive about it than in the book. Ginny's attempt to confide in Ron and Harry is left out, although a scene where Ginny sees Harry with the diary is originally in the script. Most foreshadowing hints about Ginny acting strangely are also omitted, but in the film, a close-up of Ginny looking uneasy during McGonagall's announcement about the possible school closure suggests otherwise. Harry and Ron make the decision to approach Hagrid despite the increased surveillance on students. They successfully reach Hagrid's cabin by using Harry's invisibility cloak. Just as they arrive, Cornelius Fudge and Dumbledore show up, but Harry and Ron manage to conceal themselves in time. Fudge announces Hagrid's impending transfer to Azkaban prison as a precaution, based on the belief that Hagrid was responsible for opening the Chamber of Secrets in the past. Lucius Malfoy then arrives and reveals the decision to suspend Dumbledore, a move that seems illogical given the circumstances. Hagrid and Dumbledore impart their final words to Harry and Ron. Hagrid cryptically advises them to follow the spiders for the truth, while Dumbledore emphasizes that he will only truly depart the school when there is no one left loyal to him. He reassures that help will always be available to those who seek it at Hogwarts. Chapter 15. Aragog. Harry and Ron make the decision to pursue the spiders based on Hagrid's suggestion, following Harry's observation of the spiders during a herbology class. In the film, Harry immediately spots the spiders in Hagrid's hut after Hagrid indirectly told them to follow the spiders. So, Harry and Ron follow them and never go to herbology class. Accompanied by Fang, they trace the spiders' path, which leads them to the Forbidden Forest, where all the spiders are mysteriously fleeing from Hogwarts. Despite Ron's intense fear of spiders, the thought of helping Hermione, who is currently petrified, motivates him to continue on. In the forest, they stumble upon Arthur Weasley's enchanted car, driving wildly through the trees. In the book, Ron and Harry search for spiders before bravely entering the forest. However, in the film, Ron is portrayed as fearful and hesitant to venture into the forest and follow the spiders. Ron questions the decision to follow the spiders instead of butterflies, a dialogue not present in the book. Additionally, in the book, Harry, Ron, and Fang are taken to Aragog's lair by the spiders, whereas in the film, they find their own way there. Furthermore, their surprise at seeing the Ford Anglia crashing through the spiders to rescue them is not depicted in the book, although a deleted scene shows them discovering the car before encountering Aragog. The boys persist in following the spiders deeper into the forest until they reach a lair covered in webs. Inside, they are greeted by an elderly Aragog, who discloses Hagrid's innocence and recounts his history from being given to Hagrid as an egg to his role as the supposed monster of the Chamber of Secrets before being relocated to the Forbidden Forest, where he established his colony with Mossag. The acromantulas bear a stronger resemblance to wolf spiders rather than actual tarantulas. However, this observation could be attributed to the historical fact that wolf spiders were the initial type of spider to be labelled as tarantulas. In the novel, Aragog is depicted as blind with milky white eyes. However, in the movie adaptation, his eyes are portrayed as black, suggesting that he can see. When Harry asks about the creature responsible for the girl's death in 1943, Aragog reveals it to be an ancient being feared by all spiders, including the giant ones, and emphasizes the taboo surrounding its name and the incident in the bathroom. Harry and Ron express their gratitude before attempting to depart, only to be stopped by Aragog, who decides to offer them as a meal for his offspring. Aragog shares a close bond with his owner, Hagrid. Despite his natural instinct to harm humans, he chooses to show restraint out of appreciation and respect for Hagrid. Unlike the basilisk, Aragog never personally harmed a human being. He was believed to be a caring father to his offspring, understanding their need for human flesh and allowing them to hunt freely. Aragog has made an exception for Hagrid, preventing his children from attacking him. The spell known as Harry's Arania Exami, which Harry acquired from Tom's diary and employed to fend off the assaulting spiders, did not appear within the book. The situation takes a turn when Mr. Weasley's Ford Anglia crashes through the spiders, allowing the boys and Fang to make a quick escape. Ron is upset with Hagrid for putting them in danger, but Harry clarifies his reasoning. Feeling stuck, Harry and Ron eventually come up with a potential solution after recalling Aragog's mention of a deceased girl in the bathroom. Harry speculates that Moaning Myrtle could be the girl in question. However, with the school on high alert, sneaking into the girl's bathroom near the site of the first attack seems nearly impossible. Furthermore, in the omitted sequence where Harry and Ron stumble upon the Ford Anglia, Harry cautions Ron about the importance of not losing track of the spiders. However, contrary to the book, they ultimately lose the trail and embark on a quest to locate them before being ensnared in Aragog's hideout. It is worth noting that the film neglects to mention Mosag, Aragog's companion. Chapter 16, The Chamber of Secrets. Days later, Professor McGonagall notifies the students that the Mandrake draft will be prepared soon. Later that very day, Harry and Ron successfully deceive Lockhart, who is guiding them to their next lesson by appealing to his vanity. Just as they congratulate themselves, they are apprehended by Professor McGonagall, and Harry must come up with an excuse. They were on their way to visit Hermione in the hospital wing, which was now off limits to visitors. They are now obliged to accompany McGonagall to make their alibi seem plausible. But instead of idling around Hermione's petrified body, Harry notices a piece of paper tightly gripped in her hand. This paper discloses what Hermione had uncovered before she was petrified. She had discovered, based on compelling circumstantial evidence, that the creature in the Chamber of Secrets is a basilisk, one of the colossal kings of all serpents, elucidating the enigmatic voice that only Harry could hear, as he possesses the ability to speak Parseltongue. The basilisk, a magical creature typically bred by dark wizards, was first successfully bred by Herpo the Fowl. Herpo achieved this by hatching a chicken egg beneath a toad, giving rise to the fearsome basilisk. Breeding basilisks was outlawed during medieval times, a prohibition that remains in place today. To evade detection by the Department for Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, breeders could easily conceal the egg by removing it from the toad. The basilisk had the ability to reach lengths of up to 50 feet, displaying a dark green hue or a lighter green shade on its underbelly. In addition, it boasted multiple rows of razor-sharp venomous fangs and striking large yellow eyes. The deadly creature's eyes possessed the lethal power to fatally harm anyone who made eye contact with them. Similar to a dragon's, the basilisk's skin was heavily armored, rendering it impervious to spells aimed at it. Spells such as stunning spells proved ineffective against this formidable beast. Like typical snakes, the basilisk periodically shed its skin as it grew. Basilisks have the potential to live up to 900 years in their natural state, but Salazar Slytherin's basilisk defied this lifespan by surviving for around 1,000 years. This was achieved by utilizing Parseltongue to induce a deep slumber in the creature, effectively halting the aging process and placing it in a state akin to suspended animation. The basilisk's deadly gaze did not claim any lives because of the indirect ways in which people encountered it. Colin Creevey saw it through his camera. Justin Finch-Fletchley saw it through nearly headless Nick. Mrs. Norris saw a reflection in the flooded bathroom, and Hermione and Penelope Clearwater used mirrors to look around corners. Harry discovered that spiders flee from the basilisk, and a rooster's crowing can be fatal to it, shedding light on the mystery of Hagrid's roosters being killed. The book highlighted that the crowing of the rooster is fatal to the basilisk, resulting in Hagrid's roosters being killed due to the heir of Slytherin's aversion to having one near the castle. This detail was omitted in the movie, although Hagrid was depicted holding one of his deceased roosters when he stormed into Dumbledore's office in a bid to defend Harry from expulsion. It was only after realizing that Dumbledore did not blame Harry for the incidents involving Mrs. Norris, Colin Creevey, and nearly headless Nick that Hagrid changed his approach. A scene that was cut from the film shows Harry discovering Hagrid with the rooster and Hagrid sharing his concerns about a blood-sucking bugbear, as well as his intention to seek Dumbledore's approval to cast a protective charm. Hermione's note also mentions pipes, indicating the serpent's movement through plumbing, leading them to the Chamber of Secrets entrance in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. After solving the mystery, Harry and Ron decide to inform the teachers in the staff room. However, they overhear a conversation about another attack, where Ginny has been taken by the basilisk. The heir of Slytherin has left a chilling message: her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever. Ginny Weasley is ultimately unveiled as the individual responsible for reopening the Chamber of Secrets, although under the influence of Lord Voldemort. The book contains ample foreshadowing leading up to this revelation, as Ginny struggles with a hidden secret and attempts to confess her actions multiple times. In contrast, the movie lacks these hints, making the climactic reveal at the end even more surprising. Instead of facing punishment, Albus Dumbledore shows her kindness, leading to a significant transformation in her character in subsequent films. Harry and Ron are informed that Hogwarts will not be open the next day. The professors then assign Lockhart the task of handling the creature, as he had been boasting about his ability to deal with the attacks. In the book, McGonagall and the other teachers willingly nominate Lockhart to confront the basilisk, resulting in the teachers assembling in the staff room while Harry and Ron conceal themselves in the wardrobe. Conversely, the film portrays the teachers congregating in front of the vandalized message on the wall, which reveals Ginny's capture, while Harry and Ron hide around a corner. Furthermore, in the book, the teachers' subsequent remarks after Lockhart's departure clearly indicate their awareness of his incompetence and their intention to merely remove him from the situation. These comments are omitted in the film. Unlike the book, the film presents the second message on screen. Disheartened, Lockhart heads to his quarters. Harry and Ron decide to inform Lockhart of what they know since he is supposed to confront the monster. They find Lockhart in a state of panic, preparing to flee. When asked why he, a skilled wizard, is leaving, Lockhart confesses that he is a fraud who used memory charms on the actual culprits of the deeds he took credit for in his books. He tries to use a memory charm on the two boys, but they disarm him and, with their wands at the ready, escort him to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. In the novel, Harry and Ron discover Lockhart's true nature as a fraud and incapacitate him by casting a disarming charm and tossing his wand out of the window. However, in the movie adaptation, Lockhart surrenders by dropping his wand in a defeated manner when Harry and Ron aim theirs at his face. Additionally, the book includes instances where Gilderoy Lockhart mentions specific individuals whose accomplishments he not only took credit for, but also erased their memories as a precautionary measure. On the other hand, the film does not provide any explicit examples of Lockhart's victims. Nemini Radford, the pioneer of memory-modifying charms, was the very witch responsible for their development. Her exceptional proficiency with the charm led her to become the inaugural obliviator of the Ministry of Magic. These enchantments were regularly employed by the British Ministry of Magic in their efforts to safeguard the wizarding realm's secrecy from muggles. They were utilized whenever a muggle caught sight of a dragon, or when an enchanted object accidentally ended up in muggle possession. However, if executed improperly, a memory charm had the potential to erase substantial fragments of an individual's memory and inflict brain damage, making recovery an arduous task. Moaning Myrtle provides an explanation for her death, recounting that the last thing she witnessed was a pair of immense eyes near one of the non-functional sinks. Harry discovers a snake engraving on the tap, which he opens by speaking Parseltongue, revealing the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets. In the movie, right before Harry and Ron take the plunge into the vast pit that leads to the Chamber of Secrets, Moaning Myrtle suggests that if Harry were to die in the chamber, he could share the toilet she resides in. However, in the book, she only hints at this offer after Harry, Ron, Ginny, and a recently amnesiac Gilderoy Lockhart exit the chamber. At that point, she expresses some implicit disappointment in the fact that Harry survived. Harry, Ron, and Lockhart descend through a large pipe and find themselves navigating through intricate tunnels deep beneath the school. Within this underground realm, they stumble upon a discarded snakeskin left by the basilisk. At that moment, Lockhart pretends to faint and cunningly steals Ron's wand. With a triumphant declaration, Lockhart intends to erase Harry and Ron's memories. fabricating a story that they lost their sanity upon witnessing Ginny's mutilated body. However, due to Ron's damaged wand, the memory charm misfires, wiping Lockhart's own memory and causing a section of the ceiling to collapse. This unfortunate event separates Harry, who is now headed towards the chamber, from Ron, who is trapped in the direction of the castle by the fallen rocks. Ron is left with no choice but to remain behind and clear a path through the debris, while Harry presses on in his quest to find Ginny. Chris Columbus, the executive producer and director, told cinematographer Roger Pratt to give the movie a darker appearance to match the story's tone. As a result, the sets were illuminated with softer lighting and the color scheme was toned down slightly. This trend persisted throughout the series, with each film becoming progressively darker and more desaturated. Along his path, Harry encounters a wall adorned with stone serpents, which he opens by speaking Parseltongue, granting him access to the chamber. There is an inconsistency in the depiction of the basilisk size between the book and film adaptations, with the snake being implied to be significantly larger in the latter. In Chapter 16 of the book, Harry, Ron, and Lockhart discover the shed snakeskin, and the narration mentions that the creature that had shed it must have been 20 feet long at least. However, in the movie, Ron comments that whatever shed, this must be 60 feet long or more. This alteration was likely done to heighten the suspense and danger of Harry's confrontation with the basilisk, as a 20-foot snake would be more comparable in size to the python Harry encounters at the zoo in the first movie. In the book, Harry traverses a lengthy tunnel in search of the chamber after being separated from Ron and Lockhart, while in the film, the tunnel is condensed into a small room with the entrance to the chamber directly in front of Harry, Ron, and Lockhart. Prior to entering the room, another passage is visible on the opposite side. The book describes the entrance to the chamber where Ginny is held as a solid wall adorned with two intertwined serpents, their eyes gleaming with emeralds. When Harry speaks Parseltongue to unlock the entrance, the serpents move apart as the wall splits open, revealing the chamber. In contrast, the film depicts the entrance as a circular door with 7 snakes positioned around the edge. When Harry uses Parseltongue to open the door, an 8th snake emerges from the cylinder where the other snakes are located. This snake encircles the door, causing the other snakes' heads to retreat as it approaches, ultimately allowing the door to be opened. Chris Columbus aimed for the camera movement to mimic that of a snake, mirroring the basilisks slithering through the castle. Consequently, specific scenes were captured with handheld cameras to achieve a smoother flow. Columbus even physically guided the camera operator to ensure the shots were executed precisely as he envisioned. Chapter 17, The Heir of Slytherin. Harry stands at the end of an extensive, dimly lit hall, where he discovers Ginny lying motionless by Slytherin's statue. The book depicts the statue at the end of the Chamber of Secrets as a complete body statue of Salazar Slytherin, whereas the film portrays it as only a large statue of Slytherin's head and shoulders. Rowling later reveals in Harry Potter page to screen the complete filmmaking journey that the chamber is flooded, and the rest of the statue below his head is submerged beneath the water. This explains why the basilisk was seen emerging from the water near the statue when Harry tries to wake the nearly dead Ginny. The Chamber of Secrets in the book has pillars supporting the ceiling, while the film version lacks any visible support structures. Rushing to her side, Harry drops his wand in his haste to check on her, but she remains unresponsive. Tom Riddle then appears, holding Harry's wand, and reveals that he was merely a memory preserved in his diary for 50 years. Riddle confesses to his past actions, explaining how he had opened the Chamber of Secrets to rid the school of Muggleborns, only to halt his plans when the school was threatened with closure and Dumbledore was onto him. To cover his tracks, he framed Hagrid for the attacks and left behind a diary in the hopes that someone would help him complete his dark mission. Ginny's diary has ultimately ended up in the possession of Tom Riddle, who responded sympathetically to her entries. As Ginny confided her fears, hopes, and emotions to him, she unknowingly transferred a part of her soul to him, fulfilling his desires. Gradually, Riddle grew stronger and managed to transfer a portion of his own soul back into Ginny, effectively possessing her. He used her body to open the Chamber of Secrets, unleashing the basilisk and initiating a series of attacks. Additionally, Riddle used Ginny to write threatening messages on the walls. However, Ginny began to suspect the diary's influence and attempted to dispose of it by flushing it down the toilet in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. It was at this moment that Harry stumbled upon the diary. When Ginny saw Harry with the diary on Valentine's Day, she panicked, fearing that Riddle had revealed her involvement in the attacks to him. Consequently, she stole the diary back from Harry's dormitory. The diary once again took control of Ginny, this time with the intention of killing Harry. Under its influence, Ginny wrote her own farewell message on the wall and awaited Harry's arrival, luring him into a trap. Christian Coulson was cast as Tom Riddle, despite being 23 years old and surpassing the age range of 15, 17 that was originally specified for auditions. Riddle, angered by Harry's ability to defeat the powerful dark wizard Lord Voldemort as an infant, explains to Harry that Voldemort is his past, present, and future. To emphasize this connection, Riddle uses Harry's wand to write his full name, Tom Marvolo Riddle, in the air. With a wave of the wand, the letters rearrange themselves to spell, I am Lord Voldemort. Harry comes to the realization that Lord Voldemort's true name is not actually Lord Voldemort, but rather Tom Marvolo Riddle. Riddle explains that he chose to adopt this pseudonym because he couldn't bear to use the name of his Muggle father, who had abandoned him before his birth as a wizard. This revelation occurred when Riddle discovered that his wife was a witch, and descended from Salazar Slytherin to create a new name, one that would instill fear in people. When he eventually became the greatest sorcerer in the world, he rearranged the letters of his birth name. In the movie, Harry reveals Voldemort's true identity as the heir of Slytherin, shortly after Riddle rearranged his name. This revelation does not occur in the book, but the connection between Riddle Voldemort and the heir of Slytherin is still clearly established. However, Harry disagrees with Riddle's claim, asserting that the true greatest sorcerer in the world is Albus Dumbledore, a fact known by everyone. Even when Voldemort was at the height of his power, he feared Dumbledore, and now he is barely clinging to life. Riddle counters by stating that Dumbledore has been driven out of the castle solely by the memory of him. In response, Harry passionately declares that Dumbledore is not as absent as Riddle believes. As a display of his unwavering loyalty, Harry summons Fawkes the Phoenix, who brings along the Sorting Hat. In the Chamber of Secrets book, Harry seeks help from the Sorting Hat, causing the sword to hit him on the head. However, in the film, the sword mysteriously appears in the hat on the ground, which Harry then takes. Riddle dismisses these items as utterly useless. Riddle then calls upon the basilisk to eliminate Harry. Despite Fawkes appearing vulnerable at first, the Phoenix surprises everyone by blinding the basilisk with its beak, rendering its deadly gaze ineffective. Although the basilisk can still detect Harry through hearing and smell, it remains a significant threat. In a moment of desperation, Harry dons the Sorting Hat, hoping for assistance. Instead of a response, a weighty sword with a hilt adorned with rubies descends upon Harry from within the hat. Furthermore, in the film, Tom Riddle's demeanor during the altercation is noticeably more composed in comparison to the book. Apart from exclaiming "no" in astonishment and mentioning that the basilisk can still rely on its other senses, he remains unresponsive to the basilisk's failure to strike Harry. Conversely, in the book, Tom Riddle repeatedly urges the basilisk to detect Harry's scent when it repeatedly fails to locate him during their confrontation. Additionally, the film depicts Riddle asserting that Harry Potter's ability to speak Parseltongue holds no power over the basilisk, as it was specifically trained to only obey him. This detail, however, was absent from the book and contradicted the later revelation that Harry Potter was one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. After a series of unsuccessful attempts by the blinded basilisk, it strikes once more, this time directly at Harry. However, Harry swiftly drives the sword into the roof of the basilisk's mouth, ultimately killing it. Unfortunately, during the encounter, one of the basilisk's venomous fangs pierces Harry's arm, injecting a lethal poison. In the film, Harry is chased by the basilisk throughout the Chamber of Secrets, whereas in the book, his battle against the basilisk is swift and efficient. Furthermore, Harry never ascends the statue or enters it in the book. While Riddle revels in his apparent victory, Harry seizes Riddle's diary and thrusts the basilisk fang into it. As if bleeding, ink pours out of the diary, signifying the destruction of Riddle's memory. The book solely indicated that Riddle's recollection wriggled and subsequently vanished after the diary's annihilation, whereas in the film, it was portrayed that Riddle's memory experienced a rupture in its chest cavity, accompanied by luminosity, subsequently resulting in the destruction of his eyes and infliction of damage to his countenance, ultimately leading to the emergence of gaping cavities throughout his body upon detonation. In the book, Harry Potter merely pierced the diary once, whereas in the film, he punctured the diary thrice, with 2 of the stabs targeting distinct sections within the book. It's the final one originating from the exterior. Ginny awakens from her unconscious state. With Harry on the brink of death, Fawkes, the Phoenix, sheds tears onto the wound. The remarkable healing properties of Phoenix tears instantly cure Harry. Together, Harry and Ginny make their way back through the chamber to locate Ron and Lockhart. However, Lockhart has lost all recollection of his identity and whereabouts. Holding onto Fawkes, Harry, Ron, Ginny, and Lockhart ascend the tunnel, aided by the Phoenix's ability to carry heavy loads. In the film, Ginny displays a noticeably more composed demeanor upon waking up shortly after the eradication of Tom Riddle's memory, in contrast to the book. In the book, Ginny not only acknowledges her involuntary involvement in the catastrophe, but also visibly succumbs to the overwhelming distress caused by the entire ordeal. Furthermore, due to the alteration in the sequence of events involving Fawkes healing Harry and the annihilation of the diary, as mentioned earlier, Ginny also becomes aware of Harry's injury, which was not depicted in the book. Additionally, in the book, Fawkes uses his tears to heal Harry while Riddle is still alive. On the other hand, in the film, Fawkes only uses his tears to heal Harry after Riddle's destruction. They emerge in the bathroom of Moaning Myrtle, where the entrance seals shut once again, and proceed to McGonagall's office. In the book, when Harry and Ginny stumble upon Ron and Lockhart, Lockhart, who has lost his memory, greets them with a simple hello. He then questions whether the 3 of them live in the chamber, to which Ron promptly denies. However, in the film adaptation, this scene takes place before Harry enters the chamber and discovers Ginny and Lockhart causing the tunnel to collapse. Lockhart greets them with a hello and proceeds to ask Ron who he is. Ron hesitantly responds that he is Ron Weasley. Lockhart then questions his own identity, prompting Ron to inform Harry that Lockhart's memory charm has backfired, leaving him clueless about his own identity. Lockhart picks up a stone, tosses it lightly, and inquires if Ron resides in the chamber, handing him the stone in the process. Ron firmly denies this. In a surprising turn of events, Ron takes the stone and strikes Lockhart on the left side of his head, causing him to fall back, presumably unconscious. The chamber departure is portrayed in contrasting ways in the film and the book as the characters conclude their journey with Fawkes. In the book, the journey concludes in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom where the entrance seals shut, and they proceed to McGonagall's office. The film depicts the characters being transported by Fawkes to a cave entrance in a cliff under the gleaming full moon, landing on the Hogwarts grounds before heading to Dumbledore's office. The transition to Hogwarts grounds and the subsequent visit to the headmaster's office are not shown on screen. Chapter 18, Dobby's Reward. At McGonagall's office, Harry, Ron, and Ginny discover Dumbledore, McGonagall, Arthur, and Molly Weasley, who are overjoyed to see them alive. Harry is concerned that Ginny will be accused of being responsible for the attacks, but Dumbledore astutely decides that Voldemort is the true culprit and merely used Ginny's body. After Ginny departs to rest, Harry and Ron are awarded 200 house points each for Gryffindor and receive an award for their exceptional services to the school. Dumbledore then requests a private conversation with Harry. Harry expresses his worry that he should have been sorted into Slytherin. Dumbledore discloses that Voldemort transferred some of his powers to Harry when he gave him his scar, which explains Harry's ability to speak Parseltongue. Parseltongue is characterized by a hissing sound resembling that of a snake when spoken, making it incomprehensible to most individuals, with Dumbledore being a notable exception. In addition to conversing with serpents, those who possess this ability also appear to have the power to sway the intentions of snakes to some degree. It is an extremely rare ability, typically passed down through generations as a hereditary trait. Excluding Herpo the Foul, who lived centuries before him, the majority of Parselmouths are believed to have lineage tracing back to Salazar Slytherin. Dumbledore asks why Harry believes the Sorting Hat placed him in Gryffindor despite possessing numerous Slytherin qualities. Harry confesses that the only reason he was sorted into Gryffindor was because he had requested it. Dumbledore confirms this and imparts the wisdom that their choices, rather than their abilities, reveal their true selves. He draws attention to the sword that Harry had retrieved from the hat, now noticing Godric Gryffindor's name engraved on it. Dumbledore asserts that only a genuine Gryffindor would be capable of extracting it. In the book, Dumbledore requests Ron's assistance to escort Professor Lockhart to the hospital. Conversely, in the film adaptation, Lockhart's presence is completely omitted from the scene in Dumbledore's office. Instead, Dumbledore instructs Ron to deliver release papers to Azkaban via Owl, aiming to secure Hagrid's release. However, in the film, the scene is set in Dumbledore's office instead, and Arthur, Molly, and McGonagall are not shown. Lucius Malfoy storms into McGonagall's office, expressing his anger over Dumbledore's return to the school. Dumbledore calmly explains that the governors requested his return upon learning about the attack on Arthur Weasley's daughter. It turns out that Malfoy had coerced the governors into voting for Dumbledore's dismissal by threatening to curse their families. Dobby enters the room with Lucius, revealing his loyalty to the Malfoys. A tense exchange occurs between Dumbledore and Malfoy, during which Dumbledore and Harry, with Dobby's subtle hints, uncover Lucius's attempt to frame Ginny by planting Riddle's diary in her belongings during the altercation at Flourish and Blotts. Although Dumbledore lacks concrete evidence to prove his accusation, he warns Malfoy against any further schemes, as Arthur Weasley would not hesitate to uncover the truth. This is the last Harry Potter movie to showcase Richard Harris as Hogwarts headmaster, Professor Albus Dumbledore. The film was released shortly after his passing due to Hodgkin's disease. Both Chamber of Secrets and its follow-up, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, were dedicated in honor of his memory. Harry outsmarts Malfoy by giving him one of his socks, which he then passes on to Dobby, resulting in the House Elf's freedom. Dobby expresses his gratitude towards Harry before disappearing. The British Ministry of Magic established a series of regulations known as the Guidelines on House Elf Welfare, which aim to address the treatment of house elves. However, it is worth noting that these guidelines were not effectively enforced by the Ministry of Magic by 1996. Consequently, numerous wizarding families, including the Malfoys and the Blacks, continue to mistreat their house elves despite the existence of these regulations. House elves are required to follow all commands issued by their masters. Although they may have felt inclined to defy these instructions on occasion, they are bound by the principle that their master's commands are paramount, thus compelling them to self-inflict punishment in the event of disobedience. House elves exhibit unwavering loyalty towards their masters, refusing freedom unless presented with clothes. This loyalty is considered a code of honor among their kind, leading them to fulfill their duties to the best of their abilities, even at the risk of their own lives. This loyalty could render them powerless if commanded by their masters. In the book, Harry cleverly hides the diary in his sock to free Dobby, then convinces Lucius Malfoy to throw it so Dobby can catch it. However, in the film, Harry places his sock inside the diary and tricks Lucius into giving it to Dobby without realizing it. After Dobby is freed in the book, Lucius Malfoy menacingly raises his wand at Harry, only to be stopped by Dobby. On the other hand, in the film, it appears as though Lucius Malfoy is about to cast the killing curse, Avada Kedavra, before Dobby sends him flying across the hall. The consequences of this event include the cure of the petrified individuals, Hagrid's release from Azkaban, Lockhart being sent to a hospital, and Lucius Malfoy losing his position as a school governor. In the movie, the interaction between Lucius and Harry right before Lucius departs Dumbledore's office was not part of the script. It was entirely improvised by the actors in the moment. Jason Isaacs felt compelled to say something, and Chris Columbus encouraged him to experiment. In the movie, Harry confronts Lucius about the diary incident after Lucius has already left, and Dumbledore, although still indirectly cautioning Lucius, is not informed by Harry about Lucius's involvement with the diary. In the movie, Lucius arrives at Dumbledore's office and Harry immediately recognizes Dobby. It dawns on him that Dobby's masters are the Malfoys, which clarifies why Dobby was reluctant to share information or stop punishing himself. In response, Lucius subtly threatens the house elf. However, this particular scene is not depicted in the book, mainly because Dobby's connection to the Malfoy family had already been speculated earlier on. In the novel, Harry confronts Lucius for intentionally providing the diary to Ginny Weasley at Diagon Alley while they were in Dumbledore's office. This confrontation takes place while Lucius is meeting with Dumbledore, who also issues a veiled threat to Lucius and forces the board of directors to dismiss him. However, in the movie, Harry accuses Lucius after he has already left. The book concludes with Harry returning to the Muggle world at King's Cross, where Ginny reveals that Percy is dating Penelope Clearwater, a Ravenclaw prefect. The film ends with the dinner scene. However, the film leaves out the moment when Gryffindor triumphantly secures the House Cup once again, although the implication remains intact. In the book, Hermione embraced both Harry and Ron when she revealed that she had been cured. However, in the film adaptation, she only hugged Harry while giving a hesitant handshake to Ron. This alteration was a result of Emma Watson's reluctance to publicly hug both Daniel Radcliffe and Rupert Grint. During filming, Watson's hug with Radcliffe had to be frozen for a few seconds to achieve the desired effect, as she broke the hug too quickly. This unintentionally hinted at the hesitant development of romantic feelings between Hermione and Ron in the subsequent films. Furthermore, when Hagrid arrives, he apologizes for his tardiness and explains that his release from Azkaban was delayed due to a lost letter requesting his release. He then proceeds to blame a bird named Errol for the letter getting lost, causing Ron to display a slightly embarrassed expression. This particular scene was not included in the original book. And when you get the chance, check out our Game of Thrones inspired Choose Your Own Adventure game here on YouTube by clicking the video link on the screen right now.